time to move on, time to do something different. You never know where you're going to land, buddy, but you got to jump first.
As you can see, if you're going to be seeing this on Facebook Live and in other forms over the next couple hours, we have a whole bounty of people who have joined us here for this show. And we tried to keep it in segments. So some of them will be joining in and out. Some will be going in, some will be going out. But in our first segment here, let's introduce the people who have been instrumental at the start and have been with us in a way since we started this show 20 years ago. And Jeff, you can take it from here if you want.
Oh, this is cool. All right. So this started through the Nauticom Sports Network, and WNPV was one of 8 or 10 affiliates, and we did the scoreboard show from there. So it started with, you have to remind me, it was you and I that hosted first, right?
Yeah, we were the first two.
Okay.
And then Dan, and then our guest,
yep. Our guest
was over
Dan
5
Morehouse.
years in. Yep.
Dan was a contributor. Okay. A lot of Central Bucks West stuff. Okay. And then Dan hosted after you for quite a few years. So that's Dan's role. Dave Collins and I were radio partners prior to, and we needed a strong engineer, somebody with a lot of technical savvy. So Dave would do that. And I will just remind Dave and I go back this far, 3, 2, 1, 4 makes 5. He'll know what that means. And then we've got Travis Sparks. Travis was instrumental early and as we continued, because he always contributed the scores from the coal region. And when we went solo, when we went to WNPV solo, he still contributed scores and promotions. And that's why we wanted Travis with us.
And so that is our first segment. Let's welcome from, let's start from Colorado. Are you outside Denver, Dan?
Yeah, halfway between Denver and Colorado Springs.
And we got him early before his bedtime hit. It's Dan Morehouse. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Considering the state of the world right now, Joanne and I are doing great.
And we should point out, we were going to do this live in studio last Friday night as a goodbye in a way, but obviously the pandemic hit and access to the studio was kind of limited. Correct, Jeffrey?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We were not letting people in unless they came in unannounced.
So that's why this show is taking place in this form. Travis Sparks is joining us from Coal Country. Where exactly in Coal Country are you?
I'm no longer in Coal Country. I'm in York County now.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
That's such a big difference, you know.
Oh, dude, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, it
is. Travis, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, sir. Great to be with you.
And then joining us, Dave Collins with the lighthouse in the background. Are you up in New England right now?
I am on Nantucket Island, yeah, about a half mile from where that picture was taken a couple of weeks ago.
He keeps on walking by Bill Belichick's house. That's not a joke either.
I'm serious. He's about a half mile away from where I am.
And you're a Jet fan, so it's stalking and criminal.
I'm going to stop by and leave a paper napkin note on his doorway.
I resign.
I resign. Yeah, as mayor of the village. Yep.
So I guess Jeff, you want to lead it off with the questions here?
No, I would start with Dave. The technical end was so messed up because nobody in Pittsburgh ever got anything right.
Yeah. So how it really started, Jeff, is when we were at another station, WBCB. We were following a hockey team, Father Judge, for the Flyers Cup playoffs, and they qualified for the state championship. So there were 3 games in a row out at whatever it was, the Mellon Arena in Pittsburgh.
We were at the Igloo.
Yeah. So we went out there and we saw some other broadcasters that were focused on the Western Pennsylvania teams doing the games in the press box, like 2 or 3 slots down from where we were. And one of them was Nauticom. So we went back after all 3 of the Eastern Pennsylvania teams got beat. We went back and did some research and found out about this Nauticom sports company outside of Pittsburgh. And that's how it all got put together with WNPV being the affiliate. WBCB in Levittown, we were trying to work out with them if we could do it, but they were more focused on Pennsbury and Neshaminy, and those were the teams that they followed, and a little bit of Mercer County, New Jersey stuff. So we approached Phil up in Lansdale, Phil Hunt, the general manager of WNPV, and he said, we already do these North Penn and Lansdale Catholic games, but I want to be associated with sort of like a regional or statewide network. So that's how it got started under the Nauticom brand back in 2000. And Jeff recruited me to come over saying, hey, this could lead to a bigger opportunity because we're going to have 10 to 12 games or reporters calling in each night from around the state, doing basically a state wrap-up show on Friday nights.
Eastern part. We had the Eastern part.
Yeah, we were in charge of the Eastern part. So we would send Daryl Dobas and other people out to Mannheim Central, and then up to.
And for the record, he still came back. But go ahead.
Yeah, and he told us all about it on the way home too. But that's how we got started at WNPV for the very first year. And yeah, the technical stuff, there were challenges. They were supposed to have satellite dishes, remember, Jeff? And then it turned into just calling in over the phone. But the phone number that you have, that 267 number, Jeff, is from Nauticom. I mean, you inherited that from 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Phone number I've ever known, and you've still had it all these years. So,
and for the coaches that are with us, we expanded into Florida, Ohio, Texas, right?
Yeah,
and
under the Nauticom brand.
The Nauticom brand, and we were the second most active and watched and listened to area. We beat Texas, we beat Florida, we beat Ohio. We had more participants and more listeners than all those people. We couldn't beat Western PA though.
Right, because they were established. They were like in their 5th or 6th year.
Well, it gives credit to the football fans in this part of the country.
But we'd have reporters calling in each night. We were technically only supposed to go to 11 o'clock because we were part of an Eastern Pennsylvania network with little stations out in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and I think we had an affiliate in York, and we had an affiliate in Easton, Pennsylvania too. So they would all join after their games were actually over, and we were like the regional post-game show that would run until 11 o'clock, and then it would stop on the dot. And then, after it just got sort of crunched down into WNPV, that's when you guys would go until 11:15, 11:30, depending upon what time the North Penn game ended and how many other reporters you guys had calling in. And I was one after I left, I was sort of in charge of the Neshaminy or Pennsbury recap. So I would call in the mid-2000s to give you recaps of those games while you guys were doing the North Penn games or Lansdale Catholic games.
And let me take this to Dan now. Dan, you were covering CB West at that point, correct?
I was up until I think 2002 for a rag of a paper over that way that's no longer in business. And then
wait. There's a newspaper that's not in business. Get out of here.
No, this went out of business a long time ago.
I know. Still.
I had found out about Jeff's website and contacted him to see if he needed any articles written for the website. He put me in touch with Daryl, and I wrote, I think just one maybe, but from there I got to know Jeff. And then in 2003, Kevin, I don't know if you remember this or not, you could not do the title game show with North Penn because you had a writing assignment. I think you had something with the paper. So Jeff asked me to come in and sit in, and I did. And then the next year, I was in there for good until 2012. And that was the R.C. Lagomarsino show with Lansdale Catholic winning the title.
And that was the heyday, really.
Yes,
I mean, when we got, I remember our first year actually at Nauticom, Jeff, where that was the year I kept thinking CB West would eventually lose because they were due to lose at some point. And it was the infamous, I think they were playing Downingtown in the district.
Our first year was Mike's.
Mike's year.
That was Mike Carey got into the state finals. I'm Brian, I'm right there, right?
In 2000, they went to the state finals and lost in overtime.
And that was the year where somebody at Downingtown allegedly put the dead deer on the field before the district title game. And it was one of the great all-time motivating moments because Downingtown was rolling and it got them going. And
but that was really, that was 96, wasn't it, Kevin, when that happened?
No, that was 99 or 2000. I think Joe Heyer actually did the game for us with if I'm not mistaken with Jim, correct?
96
Jeff?
Was the year that Downingtown did come to CB West though. But CB West fell to Downingtown that year.
Right.
Yeah.
Downingtown was the state title, didn't they, Brian, that year?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So that was one of the early moments of that was one of the early standout moments that I remember was the old deer, the deer slaughter on War Memorial's field.
Well, I had Bandgate, which was
I was at that one.
Yeah, North Penn was at Pennsbury, and the coach accidentally bumped into one of the band members. And it was brouhaha, and he had to come down to court and everything else like that. And thank God that was cleared up. But that was our big moment.
That was a coordinated march on the field by the band director at Pennsbury. It was.
Hey, I want to ask Travis, how did you got involved with us? You and I had met previously through television, correct? We had met once or twice doing the Service Electric.
Actually, we go back to 2000, and I wrote down a list of games that I remember the most. And back in 2000, you did for Nauticom, I did for T102. The game Marion versus Penn Argyll, the place that's in the side of the Appalachian Trail. And
been there, yeah.
Yeah, you and I were both on the outside of the press box because we had 3 TV stations, 2 radio stations, and a bunch of writers. And I saw you and it might have been Dan who was there too. I can't remember.
No, it was the guy from the Lehigh Valley whose cousin played in Drunkenmiller.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you 2 guys were out there, and I thought, you know what? The only way my field guy is going to see me is if I'm outside as well. So there I was outside with you, maybe about 20 feet away. And if I took one step forward, I was going 50 feet down in the top row of stands. That's how you and I met. And then you and I and Kyle, we'd see each other at a bunch of games that we did for Service Electric. I was your stat guy once or twice. And then I would call in I would call in scores, even call in game reports for the games that I did. Because there was about a good 5-6 years that I would commute from here in York up to the Allentown area for games, and then I'd call in my reports to you, and then I'd text you and tweet you any scores that I had. So our relationship goes back a good 20 years.
Yeah, that and a major contributor as far as promoting outside of our area. Travis was huge on that, absolutely.
And I think, Jeff, when it comes down to it, and everybody else who's on this panel can chime in, those West years, which kind of led into the North Penn years, were so critical for us to get a foothold. Hang up your phone.
No, my wife works from home.
Okay. Then please tell Joanne I didn't say a word. It was critical for us though, because it gave us deep runs, and it gave us a foothold on what was a statewide platform as we moved on. Would you agree, Jeff?
Central Bucks West was the groundwork, and then North Penn, at least at that point, kind of kept us recognized. But we had great games. I mean, Ed and George are with us right now. I mean, there's such a flurry of great games that it's hard to really sit there and point to anyone.
But I mean, Dan, you were around those West teams. What was it like on a daily basis with them?
Well, they were the talk of the town from summer camp until they would win the title. And, they used to joke that the pocket schedules had 15 weeks of football on them, because it was just assumed that they would go through the playoffs and get the Hershey and win. And everybody was shocked in 2000 when they lost in overtime. But it was, and my daughter was there. My daughter was in school there, too. I was covering the games. She was a cheerleader. So, it was like a whole big family thing we had going on. And I just remember it as being a great time. It was just a great time. And I thought they would win no matter what. They were rarely ever behind. But every game, you just assumed they were going to win. They were that good.
Go ahead, Kev. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, what game was it that Jim Church knocked Tim Ford off the stool? Does anybody remember that story? Last-minute touchdown. When did they win on a last-minute touchdown?
Was it Erie Cathedral? Or no, it was Allentown Central Catholic?
Brian's got to have this.
Brian?
When did they win on the last-minute play or something like that?
For a championship game?
Yeah, state title.
Like an East Final. I think it was actually the East Final.
No, it was the state final.
State final was 1999.
Oh, you know what it was? You know what it was, Brian? It was the semifinals in Hershey before going to Altoona when they beat Central Dauphin.
Oh, in overtime. Yeah, because Dave Armstrong had the flu, and he played through the flu.
Right, and they were down 21-6 at the half, and they won in overtime.
Yeah, that was a comeback game.
What about a blocked?
That was the Erie Cathedral.
That was Erie Cathedral Prep in '99.
Okay, so that's the game that Jim Church and Tim Ford are doing the game, and on that call, Schwam, you've had to have heard this. where Jim gets so excited, he throws his arm out and knocks Tim off the stool, totally onto the ground. That's a true story.
That's impressive. Give the man some credit. He hit him low center of gravity.
It was the only time he couldn't say, Tim, tell him what happened.
I'm on the floor. I can't tell you.
So let's shift this over. Travis, thank you. Dan, I know you're going to hang in there for a bit.
Hey, can I just congratulate Travis? And since he's gotten married, congratulations to that. And how many more 300 games on the bowling?
That's a sore subject right now because I can't bowl, and I had my best year. I had 4 this year.
Wow.
And I'm up to 11 overall.
But still, congratulations on the marriage, buddy.
It's 8 years now, but thank you. So
no, I haven't talked to you that much. Things I remember happened during the scoreboard years.
I agree. Hey, it's been great helping you guys out. I remember going back to the RC Lagomacino years. I had Kyle on my show on WPPA a couple times talking about them, and those were good times. And then I rooted for North Penn to get to the Quad A final just so I could see you guys every once in a while. And Kyle had the prep that Kyle did. I mean, I don't know what size you could make. I mean, you could put like a big bowling ball box, a 4-ball case. I mean, that size of cardboard that he would have with all stats and things like that. It was at least that big. And just to see that thing every week, like, oh my goodness, and all that prep to go into it. Salute to you, Kyle. It's been great to help you guys all along the way. And hopefully we all get together again sometime to talk high school football.
T-Sparks, we will.
Thanks, Travis. Jeff, I'm trying to get we're having trouble with the Facebook feed. Can you introduce our coaching guests here?
Oh, man, I'd love to. Some of my favorite coaches. I got Ed Gallagher, who sat through, what was that, Ed, a 0-10 season the first year?
0-11.
0-11.
Yeah.
Then he comes back and he starts making the playoffs on a semi-regular basis there. That was cool. George Banas from Quakertown. George, you and I had the conversation how many times watching that program grow. I'm talking to a man that would walk into the school and start pulling kids off the side. You're playing football. You're playing football. You're playing football. Guys, welcome. It's great to have you guys here. It really is. How's everybody surviving? What's going on? Your family's okay and everything? Whoever wants to take it first. Ed, go ahead.
All right. Well, yeah, things are going pretty well. Just get out for a walk every once in a while. I'm trying to exercise, but it's really not working. Exercise even for an hour a day. That's 23 hours I'm sitting on my butt, either at a computer or, binge watching shows. So it's really not, it's not working.
How about you, George?
Things are going well, family up and downs. I got a senior, an 8th grader, and a 2nd grader. So trying to do distance learning with those 3 is quite a challenge. Some days are better than others, but like Ed said, you get outside, you try to do, 1, 2, 3 walks a day at least. I've gotten a lot of things off the honey to-do list completed finally after coaching football all these years.
Oh man, good.
And I should point out how impressive I am that of everybody here except for Dave Collins, these 2 have the best looking backdrops for the Zoom meeting that in this meeting here.
We're just trying to class it up for you, Kevin.
I hear you. Guys, this is normally the time of year, I guess you're in the weight room a lot with your guys. I'm starting to think of passing camps. Obviously graduation coming up for your seniors and everything, but how weird is it right now, given what the circumstances are, to be in this spot, that you don't know where the schedule goes from here.
It's very weird and it's very frustrating, but there's really not much we can do. I'm sure George will say the same thing, but you try to give the kids workouts to do, but you can't watch them do them. They're posting some things for us so we can see a little bit of what they're doing. We have some Zoom meetings with them, which is why I have this background to at least interact with them a little bit. And it's not the same. Missing the kids, missing the workouts, just the whole camaraderie of it is out the window right now, even just in small groups.
George?
Yeah, I have to agree. We're doing, 4 at-home workouts a week, and Thursday nights, like last night, I was on Google Meet for 2.5 hours by position groups. I mean, it is great to see the kids' faces because that's what we're limited to, but it doesn't take place of, Wednesday night, O-line and skill workouts on the stadium turf and being in the weight room around each other. It's what we're allowed to do as of right now. And, we're trying to look forward, hopefully, to July 1st as sort of a date that we can reunite.
Are you guys planning for any possible readjustments to the schedules at all?
Well, as George said, July 1st is where the PIAA is left it for now, and that's just a tentative restart date for sports. So, if that's the case, we're going to have to squeeze a lot of what we planned on doing in the spring into July and early August. So, a lot of times we like to give the kids off the week before we start camp, and I don't know how that's going to be possible this year. We're just, it's going to be really tight, and I just hope we have a season. I mean, that's the biggest concern for me. I know we talked before we got started here, but that's the priority. We need to keep football going. We need to keep, we need to have some social interaction. Just be smart about it. I think it's going to happen. I agree with George. I think it will happen in the next month or so. Things are going to settle down and open up a little bit more for us. So, it's going to be it's been a different off season, and even leading up to the season, it'll be completely different.
George, how flexible do you guys have to be going forward here with the schedule constraints, the uncertainty, and the idea that your schedule may get shortened from, late August to maybe the end of September or October before you end up playing games?
That's what I've communicated with the players is we got to be flexible. Right now, we have a July 1 date as, a hopeful reuniting to get on the practice field, whether that's 10 guys at a time or 25 guys at a time. That remains to be seen. And then we're planning on, we usually give them those couple of weeks off before camp starts. We talked about not being able to do that this year, that we're going to have to keep rolling right through into Heat Week. But being flexible. And I told the kids that. I said, we're going to prepare for the soonest comeback as possible, and then we'll be ready for whenever those games, scrimmages, or camp is allowed to be held. We'll be ready to roll into that. But I did tell them we have to be flexible, but I'm not going to not prepare, that whole, saying about, failure to plan is a plan to fail. So we definitely are planning and adjusting on a day-to-day basis.
Hey, Kev, let me jump in here real quick because I'm going to ask the doomsday question. Heaven forbid there was no season this year. How does it affect recruitment, and how do you help a player at that point?
Well, again, it's going to be really hard for the rising senior that doesn't have any videotape. I mean, realistically, we have a bunch of kids coming back that have some video from their junior year. So if nobody's playing this year, at least they'll have a leg up on some of their classmates. But it's a tough situation. I look at it as I'm hoping we have a season, but there's not much. We have no control over that right now. Right. Look at the spring sport guys that lost their entire season right now. Those are the kids I feel for. My old line coach's son, Stephen Blue, was like 2 goals short of being setting the school record for goals in lacrosse, and he tore his ACL last year and missed most of his junior year. This was his senior year to come back and shine, and he lost his entire season. So there are going to be cases like that everywhere, and you just hope that the kids that are coming back that have some film, they'll be able to be recruited in a similar way just based on earlier tape.
Let me bring Kyle in here because Kyle obviously is dealing with this a little bit on the administrative end on the other way at North Penn. Kyle, I mean, how much of what you guys are doing now is kind of looking at what the landscape may be for a landscape you don't know in September?
Well, that's the thing. We don't know. North Penn, where I work, just decided their plans for commencement after surveying the community and coming to basically the understanding that the social distancing guidelines are not going to change before we need to get things in order for graduation. So we're proceeding with a different plan. And I think just like we've heard from Ed and from George, that, you know, we don't know what's going to be happening in August. You know, if the PIAA or the state of Pennsylvania or Montgomery County says, hey, go ahead, and we're in that heat acclimation period, then what's good is the teams can proceed business as usual. I think the issue is going to be from a spectator standpoint. Is it just parents? Is it nobody? You know, it would be nice to have a local radio station to cover games if there were nobody in the stands.
Good idea.
But, you know, so that's, I think, the wild card right now. My feeling is that, you know, we hopefully will have, between the lines, a normal football season. It's just outside the lines, I think things are still going to be a little bit different.
Ed and George and Kyle, I guess question I have is, do you guys, you talk about the value that football has, and I can't imagine what a school atmosphere would be without football in the fall. Now, is that the biggest thing? I mean, obviously there's the health concerns you got to weigh, but there's also like the concern of, you want to give these kids the best possible experience going forward here. And if you don't have something for them to do that's not in a classroom, you could lose kids easily, couldn't you?
Go ahead, George. You can take this one.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, Friday nights are about our community. And it doesn't matter if we're having a 1-10 season or if we're on a roll and we're 8-0. You know, Friday nights in Quakertown, our stadium is packed, and it doesn't, you know, like I said earlier, it doesn't really matter whether you're a true football fan or not. You're going there to be a part of the community and go see each other, and you know, it's an event. You know, so if we don't have that, and Ed, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like if we're having a bad season, our school morale is a lot lower than if we're rolling and we're, you know, having a good season. And unfortunately, you know, that burden is on our shoulders as a football program of how that school year is going to go, depending on how our season goes.
Football definitely sets the tone for the atmosphere in the building. I think the culture and the vibe that you get every day when you walk through the halls is so different if you're 5-2 than you are when you're 2-5. Totally different.
Do you think it's tied into whatever happens with college football in the NFL?
Sadly, yes.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, they're going to start doing things without fans at first, and you know, hopefully, you know, this thing will subside enough, or you know, they'll come up with something scientifically that's going to allow us to start being around human beings again. That's the biggest hope we have.
Yeah, I just saw what Iowa, the president opened up that their athletes are allowed to come back this starting next week.
Right. I mean, it's going to be a question, obviously, with those. You know, there's so much money in the college game, especially. It's tied in the spectators. I don't know if they're going to have to get a bill of health from the Department of Health to let people in. So,
Hey, Kevin, can I ask the coaches a question real quick?
go ahead, Dave.
Have you had any of the recruits that are going away to college or scheduled to go away next year sort of second guess it, or have something from the colleges saying, hey, hold off, to where, you know, they were supposed to start next year as a freshman or something like that? Any colleges say, hey, hold off your plans right now? No, still.
No,
They're planning to go.
our kids are getting their summer workouts starting
Okay.
to trickle in for their colleges.
So they're still planning as if there is a season scheduled to start in August and September.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, let's get to fun stuff. George, do you have a favorite memory over these last couple of years that you want to share right now? I mean, you know, we saw a lot of good times for you guys with playoff runs and everything. You know, kind of what has stuck out to you over the last, I guess, 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, it always has to go back to like our first district playoff win, and then also that Thanksgiving win that year. That was just a remarkable run that we had, and you guys were a part of that, covering us, you know, and having us on the show and having interviewed the players, which to me, that's so meaningful that you guys come out and take that time, during the week to get those backstories of players and incorporate them into the games. But those two games really, stand out for me, and they're such a cornerstone of our program here at Quakertown. And, I'm a huge fan of you guys, and it absolutely is heartbreaking not to see this move on somehow, some way.
Eddie?
Well, it's been a long haul for me. I remember, my first indoctrination to WNPV was as an assistant coach over at Penn, and I got to know a lot of the guys and got to get a feel for what it was like, and I really got into it. And then when I came over to Souderton, I'd say the biggest thing that I've taken away is the coverage of the rivalry games. They're always the best. I mean, we didn't play North Penn for years. We still haven't beaten North Penn for years, but at least we're playing them again. And the year that we brought the game back, I think it was 2007. Just the atmosphere was great. It was just a neat thing, and it's something that should happen every year. And hopefully we'll get back to playing them again sooner or later, whether we realign the league again or we just play them as a non-league game. We can't lose that rivalry. 309 Bowl with Quakertown, great rivalry. They're back in our league this year, so that's going to be great. And all those games with Penn, it's obviously a little personal for me, but we've had some nail biters that went down to the last play with Penn that have been just outstanding football games. So the rivalry games, the traditional things, everything you guys do, for the kids too. I mean, I remember the Saturday mornings coming in with Jim Church on the bench. I thought those were great. The tribute you guys did, for Ronnie Powell when he passed away. It's just, those are the special things. Ronnie would be 31. This is his birthday Sunday, so it's just, hard to believe how things go.
Kev,
hold on. Can I ask one question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Ed, when you were doing on the bench on Saturday mornings, did Church bring in donuts? No, that's not surprising. Go ahead.
We're going to find somebody to get
Yes.
brought donuts in. We're going to find somebody. I just want to say
I was on the bench with Church as a player.
that's right. Yeah,
In there.
There was no donuts there. My head coach, Steve Curley, took us to McDonald's first because he knew that there wouldn't be any food there for breakfast before we went to the show. And
George, were you on as a coach or no? Was Jim still doing the show?
no, just as a player. But you know what I mean? That's so memorable. It's so funny. I have a cassette tape of that. And I had to find a cassette player to actually let my kids listen to the interview as, when I was a player on the bench with Jim Church. And then fast forward, all those years, and then you guys have Logan, my son, and myself on, for a podcast. Like, those things are just, they're memories for years and years to come for us.
Kev, I have to reveal here for the first time that when I would go visit Ed or George with Kyle, I asked the softball questions, and then they got into football talk. So I just make that clear. I'll let Schwam do all the heavy lifting with the football talk.
That's not surprising. It's not.
I know this is not I told you I don't want to turn this into a backslapping. You're great. You're a wonderful show. But I just want to thank these two guys. It's been a pleasure starting with the August visits, coming out and hanging out, and throughout the season. Both you guys have been great to all of us that have been out there, to me specifically. I'm going to miss hanging out with Ed, and, just Ed gave us, and Kyle will vouch, whatever time we needed, however long we needed. George was the same way. I'm going to miss not getting the opportunity to bring George corn in the summertime. But, and I do want to thank George and Quakertown for letting us in their press box. Just want to let people know that too.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't big time us.
I'm just leaving it at that. That's all.
Yeah.
Did we not let you in our press box?
No, somebody else did it.
So you
did.
yeah. I'm sorry. Could have said that a different way. No, you guys.
That was
you guys have been great. I'm going to miss the summer visits, man. I'm going to miss
too.
coming out there and standing talking football.
That was Thanksgiving.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. We got pushed out for somebody else. Ed and George, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you hopping on here. Hopefully we see you guys in the fall somewhere along the line here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, guys.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
George
Appreciate it.
Banas and Ed Gallagher. And
Thanks so much.
We
Thank you.
are going to start the second portion, or the next portion of this. One of the things that made the Scoreboard Show special was the group of writers we had that joined us, Jeffrey.
Oh, yeah.
And joining us right now in one of the corners, we're going to have a couple coming in because I saw Jeff Bideman earlier. Yeah, he's coming back on. So I will be streaming them in here. Is Mike Silsky.
Are you going to open up the mics a little bit to let everybody ask a question if they want to?
Sure, we can do that.
Hey, Travis is sitting there. He's nice and patient. Dave Collins, he asked an intelligent question.
Unmute all. All participants are unmuted. So
look, the best looking man in the cube just popped in right there, bottom right.
Who's that?
Mike Silsky.
Yes. Joining us now from the Inquirer, the sports columnist, who was part of the initial surge of this thing. It's Mike Silsky. Michael, how are you?
Hi, Kev. Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
By the way, you are in the Jim J. Bullock block on my screen.
I'm the secret square.
Yes, you are. Mike, I guess, you were covering the CB West teams when we started this whole adventure. And your first that year was actually eventful. What was it like covering it back then? I mean, obviously you covered Super Bowls and World Series and everything since then, but what was it like those early years covering West?
The saying we used to have in the Intelligencer newsroom was that as far as Doylestown was concerned, there were 5 professional sports teams in the Philadelphia area. The Eagles, the Phillies, the Flyers, the Sixers, and the CB West football team. So it was a great experience. I look back on those years. My first season was 1998. I see Dan Morehouse in the corner there. Hi, Dan.
How are you?
Good. And that team to this day remains the absolute best high school football team I've ever seen. They went 15-0. They were challenged in one game, one time by North Penn in a rainstorm and beat them 13-12. Other than that, they stomped every team they faced. They won the state championship game 56-7, and the 7 was an anomaly. It was unlike anything I had seen sports-wise up to that point when I was 23, 24, and it was a lot of fun to be part of that community and to see what high school football meant to Doylestown and Central Bucks community, and then the surrounding communities in Bucks and Montgomery County was great.
Also joining us here is Ed Kratz, who for years was at the Intel, was the wrestling writer, was a football writer, was the Eagles writer for a long time, and now is at USA Today, at Sports Illustrated as part of their network. Ed, how are you? And we were mentioning about how in the early years, how that Mike was covering the CB West teams. You had a lot of Pembridge at that point, and it was the Jeff Hollenbach years and how good they were. Was at the Intel, was the wrestling writer, was a football writer. Yes, Ed.
Ed might be on delay.
Ed is on delay.
I'm on delay.
Sports Illustrated.
Oh, this is where WNPV mistakenly put the 7-second delay. Sorry.
That's right. What was it like for you covering those teams back in the day? The Jeff Hollenbach years.
Yeah, I have a major delay. It's hard to
Yes, I can hear my own voice, which is really scary. Ed, I'll come back to you, okay?
All right, okay.
Hey, Mike, a question for you, because you and I met on the sidelines of a high school football game. You went on to accomplish great things, writing the books, writing now for the Inquirer through, going through New York and everything. How much of covering the high school game trained you for what you're doing now, and how different are the two?
Oh, it trained me incredibly well. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's more difficult to cover a high school sporting event of any kind than a professional or major college sporting event. There's a story at the Inquirer that may or may not be true. It may be apocryphal, but we like to tell it anyway, about a certain former writer at the paper who shall remain nameless, but whose initials are Stephen A. Smith, went to cover a high school game once and wondered who was going to provide him the stats. And, you don't get provided stats at a high school football game unless you're in Hershey and it's the 4A championship. And even then, you're lucky if that happens. You know, you're standing on the sideline and keeping your own stats, and you're standing out there in the rain and the snow or whatever the case may be. And once you do that, and once you have to try to coax intelligent and insightful responses from 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, that is great training ground for anything you might go beyond that. And I do think that the other aspect of it too now is, and it's kind of a regret I have, Jeff, is that I look back at that time, and as much as I enjoyed it, I was probably too gung-ho about it in some ways. Like I feel like I look back and I feel like I came in like I was going to be the Woodward or Bernstein of the high school beat. And, I probably treated it a little too seriously at times, and should have kept certain things in perspective about it. But by the same token, there were big stories there that had to be covered from a journalistic standpoint. And to be able to do that at the Intel with the group that we had, the writers that we had, the editors that we had, it was the best training ground I could have asked for.
And Kevin, you can answer this too. What did the backlash feel like when you wrote something and then you were kind of raked over the coals by parents and fans from a high school level?
In some ways it was harsher than what I get now from pro athletes, because you're assumed to be part of the community. There is this kind of unspoken, assumption that, okay, we're all in this together. You cover CB West or CB East or Penn Ridge or Quakertown, and we're all kind of here for the same reason. And there were a lot of times that was the case, but there were times where it wasn't the case. I can remember, writing a story about a girls basketball coach getting fired at CB East, and all the parents were up in arms because I wrote that there was a conspiracy to oust him. And a mother got on the phone with me and said, hey, why are you writing this? All we did was have a bunch of parents get together and express our opinions that this man shouldn't be the coach anymore. And I said, ma'am, that's a conspiracy. That's kind of the definition of it, So there was give and take, both ways. But it could be tough. It could be a challenge.
Was one of those coaches, one of those parents named Putin?
No.
Joining us now, we got Ed Kratz back. Ed.
I don't see Ed, but I see JB.
Can Ed hear me?
I can hear you, Kev.
All right, and I don't hear myself back. Also, Jeff Beiteman is joining us. He was the executive sports editor of the Intel and the Courier Times for 20 years. Well, in some form for 20 years. Jeffrey, how are you?
I'm doing well, Kev. Thanks. Yeah, I was. That would be 23 years.
23 years. And Drew Markle is there somewhere in here. Drew?
I think Drew's on the treadmill.
Drew has actually turned it over to his stepson, Declan, who actually worked in our office for 1 year.
He's back.
Drew, you're back. And you haven't been unmuted yet, have you?
No, now he's connecting.
Okay. Hey, Ed, or let me start with Jeff, and then I'll go back to Ed. Hey, Jeff, when we came up with the idea for the show, when you and Mr. Nolan first talked, what was the initial thought?
You know what? It's funny because I felt pretty good about it. I had moved to Montgomery County and started at the Intel, and I moved from Chester County, and they had a station out there, WCOJ. So I grew up with high school football on Friday night and high school football on Saturday afternoon covered on the radio. So it was great to come out here and just from a personal standpoint, have there be a WNPV. I lived in the North Penn School District, so that was really cool. And you always kind of thought that there was something more that we could do with a way to broadcast what we were doing from a print standpoint, and to get some people out and on a radio, on a multimedia type platform. And Jeff had a really good idea, and I thought it really meshed well with what we did on a Friday night, from September through, for some of the state championship runs all the way into December. So I thought it worked out really well.
And the trick was, like, the benefit we had in those early years was no Saturday paper. And then, of course, in the later years, no Saturday paper. In the middle, we had a Saturday paper, which caused the deadline issue to some degree. But you didn't seem too concerned by that.
No, I didn't, because actually I thought it was really good, and it was a way for, I mean, obviously there's benefits to the radio station, but benefits to us are giving all of our reporters an opportunity to get out and be out on the radio airwaves, you know, for people to see that they're more than just a reporter who's in the stands, who's there on the sidelines, wherever they are, you know, that they have a lot to say. And quite frankly, I also professionally, I loved hearing the unfiltered, you know, 5 minutes after the game ended, what everybody really thought about what happened. I know that created some pretty good radio for you guys. It also created pretty interesting situations for you guys.
Yeah,
but to me, that made it kind of fun. It made it really fresh.
You had a couple headaches of some guys who, and we're not going to name names. Well, yeah. Okay.
I got phone calls.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I got a phone call. I mean, hey, it was part of the gig. You know, there were some people who were very unfiltered, I think is a good way of putting it.
JB, when you would hand out assignments, would you think maybe a best reporter would go to a certain game that was big because it's going to be on radio, translated on the radio? Did that go into any of your decisions?
Yeah, it did sometimes. I can't say it was the overriding decision, but there was
because I couldn't convince you. Yeah.
Yeah, but I know we did go back and forth with that.
Yes, we did.
But yeah, it did. You know, if there was a big game, and obviously, you know, people who were getting the big games, you know, were the lead high school guys, and I had a whole lot of confidence in them and how they would handle games. And you know, one of the things that we always had to work out too between the newspaper and the radio was your audience, and the geography at radio was just a little bit different than what we had at the paper. Right. So we kind of had to. There was some compromises that had to go on. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Ed, you were usually Mr. Pemridge at that point. A lot of Hollenbach, a lot of, you know. Yeah. But I mean, you had your own little share of drama on that beat as well. Just talk about what those years were like for you.
Well, that's the school district I live in. Like Jeff lives in the North Penn School District. I live in the Penridge, and I became very well acquainted with their band's theme song. That I would come back to the office, and I would be, you know, I would get that thing going, and Sealski would always, you know.
I'm still trying to find that song on iTunes, Ed. I swear, I'm still trying to find it.
Yeah, but that was just that was just a song that would stick in my head, and yeah, I mean, I loved doing it, and you know, talking about when this whole thing hatched. I mean, there was a brief couple minutes when I thought, man, this sucks. I mean, this is just one more thing we're going to have to do is now we got to call the radio.
We're not getting paid for it.
But you got your phone bills or something reimbursed the first couple of years or something.
Yeah.
Did we?
Yeah, early on.
Early on, yeah.
Okay. Well,
and in 2000 hit.
I think I'm still waiting on that check.
Yeah, Ed.
But I love, you know, after those few minutes of resistance that I initially had, I kind of came around to thinking, you know, this is pretty cool. You know, you can call in right after a game, and you know, the games sometimes they weren't close and they were blowouts, and it was kind of a struggle to talk about, you know, what unfolded. But you know, when you had the exciting game and it came down to the wire, or a handful of plays, it was like, you know, it was so exciting to talk about with somebody that could appreciate that. And then that kind of helped you get your thoughts together as to what you wanted to write and how you wanted to kind of frame your story. So I loved doing it. I enjoyed the heck out of doing it. I wish I could have done it longer. But man, it was really a great time.
For Ed and Mike, since you both ended up going on to cover professional sports, you know, full time, did it help you when, I mean, you know, there's other interviews that call in. Did it help you on what not to do on a professional radio station or television outlet? Kind of what you learned doing our reports?
Go ahead, Ed.
I think it was great practice, you know, to kind of organize your thoughts in kind of a hurried fashion. And, you know, it was really kind of a good launching point to being able to talk on the radio or what have you. But, you know, I think that was a good training ground for sure. And I will say one of the benefits to doing it was I never got any call. I don't get any calls from like Carson Wentz's mom or somebody's mother who isn't happy about what you wrote about their kids. So, you know, there is that added benefit of doing the pros over the high schools.
Mike?
Yeah, it absolutely helped. I mean, we were doing back then what, you know, in some ways people do now. I mean, the differences are what the differences are. I mean, we, you know, for a long while we didn't have a Saturday paper. So you had this time to go back and do the work and craft your stories, and nobody was going to find out. There was a period there where nobody was going to find out who won a game on a Friday night unless they listened to the game on WNPV if it were on, or if they picked up the paper on Sunday morning. So, I mean, obviously a lot has changed since that time, but it was, you know, it was what we do now in a lot of ways. And the fact that, you know, you had to come on the air, you were aware that people were listening, you were aware that people wanted to hear what you had to say, and you needed to be professional in how you did it. You know, I mean, that's what you do now. If you know, you go on a talk show and want to discuss Jalen Hurts versus Carson Wentz or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with what Ed said. It's really no different. I mean, it's, you have to be aware that people are listening, and you have to carry yourself like a professional.
I always wondered if that was like a jumping off training ground, you know, what we did, and the guys moving up, Ed and Mike, and even you, Kevin, for what you're doing. So
I just talk. That's all I do. So
I have a question for Ed. So Ed,
well, we also got Drew and Todd here, by the way. So
okay. Well,
come on.
Let me ask Ed real quick. Ed, so when you're done talking post game, say with an offensive lineman, do you then offer him technique advice based on your play with that powerful Phoenixville team?
Yeah, I love talking about the glory days, Jeff. You know, but I will say this: I see Kyle Berger over there, and I see Kyle on the wrestling circuit. I do some work as the head coach at one of the middle schools in Penn Ridge, and I see Kyle. He officiates some of our matches, and I try to tell him about the glory days, and you know, hopefully he'll give me a favorable call during the match, but it doesn't always seem to work.
Man, I think that was the leather helmet days.
Yeah. Kyle, do your eyes roll out of your head the way ours did when Ed started telling those stories?
I gave him an immediate unsportsmanlike conduct on notice the rest of the match.
Drew Markle and Todd Thorpe are still at the paper, and they were joining us day one through the final week last year. Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing fine, Kev. Hope everybody's doing well in this crazy time.
I am stunned you knew how to use Zoom. I really am. You were the one I thought you would not have any shot of using this correctly.
Kev, before you go any further, my IT guy is home from school. Let's not kid ourselves.
Okay.
Hey, Declan, what's happening, brother?
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
So
I had no idea how to use this, but Declan hooked me up.
And you'll never know how to use it again, probably after this.
Declan worked as an intern with us, remember?
Yes, he did. Exactly. It's been just a tremendous ride with doing it for 20 years. I mean, you know, for the longest time, you had Dan Morehouse carrying Jeff, and then Jeff carrying Kevin. You know, I'm not sure who's carrying it. You know, who Kevin's going to carry.
I was carrying Chick-fil-A into the office. That's about it.
That was the toughest decision. Wawa or Chick-fil-A every night.
Or both. You know.
Todd, I mean, you got sent to the lower Bucks last year, last couple
Don't
years,
make
right?
it sound like it's a punishment.
I love lower Bucks. But I mean, we wanted to have you on a lot because we always enjoyed going down to the Neshaminy and Pennsbury's and all that. And there were some real great storylines down there the last couple of years, obviously with Ben Salem and Truman and all that. Just talk about what it's been like for you the last couple of years, kind of at that new area.
Todd's muted.
Todd is muted. Hold on here. I will unmute him. You are unmuted. Go ahead.
All right. Thanks for letting me know. But as you were saying, Lower Bucks is different. It's definitely the more community feeling, and people go to the games.
I think Todd, we're having
I've enjoyed it. I think it's.
Todd, I think we were having some issues there with your signal.
Jeff, this sounds like our first or second week way back in the beginning.
So now, we okay now?
Yeah, we're good now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, like I was saying, it's been interesting. It's been enjoyable, just covering new schools, new territories. And as I found out that the people down there, once you start covering them, they know exactly who you are. Like there's no going into a game where the coaches or even the fans don't know who you are. The assistant coaches know who you are. Everybody knows who you are because it means something now. It definitely takes on a different feeling. Not that it didn't in Upper Bucks and Central Bucks. I don't think it does, but it's just a little different.
Drew, obviously you're a Neshaminy guy, but I mean, you've been up this way for forever. Yeah, I'm calling you old.
That's fair.
How much have you seen change within the landscape of the area in the last decade or so?
Kev, I don't know how much the kids have really changed. It's still football. I mean, there's more turnover amongst the coaches than there used to be, but that's kind of across the board with high school sports. But it still means a lot. I mean, the big games, get the big crowds. There are times you'll go to a game and you won't see much of a crowd, and you kind of shake your head. But when it's an important game, the people show up and they're still into it, and a couple schools, I think like a school like Quakertown. I mean, their student section, is unbelievable. Every year, regardless, good, bad, or half decent team, those kids are there. So, I would say it's been pretty consistent. It's still pretty good. And people love their high school football.
I should point out to Jeffrey before he starts breaking down the sweats. Joining us now is the former head coach, state championship head coach at Neshaminy High School. Was at Hatboro Horsham last year, back at Imhotep now, was also an assistant coach at LaSalle. It's Mark Schmidt. Mark, how are you?
Good, guys. How we doing?
Oh, we're great.
All good, Mark.
Nolan, go ahead, fan yourself. Go ahead.
No, I'm fine. I want to compliment JB though, because when JB and I got together and he would give me the list of writers, and for the most part, it was spot on. We were joking earlier. Sometimes if there was a big game, I'd say, can I get somebody to go here? You were talking to Todd about going to Lower Bucks. The past couple of years, I would get that list Drew would send it to me on a Wednesday or whatever, and I would see Todd Thorpe, George School, Jenkintown. And I'm like, what am I doing with this? What am I going to do with this game? Okay. Maybe Pennsbury's playing somebody, or maybe Ben Salem's off to a good start or whatever. I get George School and Jenkintown. So JB,
yeah, Georgetown. That's a news event.
That's a George School, but
Game's the same.
There you go.
Game's the same. You can't be dissing on the George School.
That's
Mark. I'm not dissing, but for radio, maybe not so much interest.
Oh, okay. I got nothing.
To our writer friends, thank you. And obviously as a colleague, I miss all of you. You guys were huge on this show and even better as friends. So I want to say that.
Don't get weepy, Kev.
Yeah, Kev.
Hey, guys,
I'm Irish. I'm going to get weepy at some point.
And from my point of view, just thank you guys for contributing. And I hope you guys were shown the respect you guys deserve from all of us at the station.
Oh, there's never a doubt about that.
Yeah, very much so. Hey, you know what I did?
You could have treated me better, Jeff.
No, listen, Mike, this is the first interview you've done that somebody didn't start. Remember that article you wrote about Mike Patton's family?
I didn't write. Stop it. I never wrote anything about those kids who stole the beer. It never happened.
On the station, some certain host had to refer
I'm going to get off this line and start yelling at Jeff. We have to rehash this all over again.
No, I'm just saying. I'm the first one who didn't start an interview with that who's associated with WNPV.
God bless you, Nolan. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
By the way.
Hey, you know what I did? Can I say one thing before we go?
Sure. Go ahead, Jeff.
It's great that we're all here and all the contributions that everybody made. But I think one of the things that we need to look at when we talk about the show and the success of the show and of high school sports, especially in this area with the football program, is think about how lucky we were to cover teams like Central Bucks West, North Penn, Lansdale Catholic, Neshaminy. I mean, for our small little geographic area, all the teams that we had that either won state championships or made deep runs, and quite frankly, had people who cared about those teams. When they cared about those teams, where did they go? They wanted to hear about it on the radio. They wanted to read about it in the newspaper. I think that really made a big difference and really helped the success of the show move along as it did.
I agree.
Here.
And it makes me remember of a conversation JB and I had. I don't know if you remember this, because I'm big on the Neshaminy, Pennsbury, and Lower Bucks, right? I said on one day, I said, hey, JB, I said, how do you think some of those good Neshaminy, Pennsbury teams would fare against Central Bucks West? JB says, they wouldn't stand a chance. Just
on
goes
that
to
note,
prove that not everybody's smart.
Hey, just telling the truth.
So let's get to one of the head coaches of a great Neshaminy team. Mark, what has it been like for you?
Wait, is Jack Swartz here? I'm sorry. Go ahead. That was a joke.
Oh, we're gonna have a hang up here, aren't we? Mark, what's it like for you right now? Obviously, with everything kind of put on hold.
It's interesting. I'm really technologically challenged, and I've kind of, with this whole thing, I think I've been on averaging 8 Zoom meetings a week. Just got off the quarterback meeting to get on this meeting with our guys. So, it's interesting, preparing, you're doing like lesson plans, you're teaching a class, kids are all, everybody, you get 100% attendance, and, you get excited by the way that they care as much as what they do. Devin Johnson's the new head coach down there. Devin was a guy that I asked to come on when I went down with Albie to help me coach the defense, and he's become the D coordinator and head coach there. And it's, he's done an absolutely tremendous job this year, just cranking the kids back up academically and everything. And so, my wife went and got a new dog. So we got a 3-year-old who's freaking out because she's done, she's spoiled. And I got an 8-week-old bull mastiff who thinks she runs the house. And it's so we're dealing with that too. So there's a whole lot of crap happening here, but we got it's trying times. You just want to make sure people stay healthy and stay safe.
Jeff or Kyle?
Huh? Oh.
No. Jeff, Kyle, either one of you have a question?
Well, I just want to say hey to Mark. It's good to see you. It's been a while since we spoke.
What's up, man?
But I just want to say that over the years, when Jeff and I would prepare for those North Penn Neshaminy games, it was always fun to kind of go down and watch the end of practice, and then kind of come back into the war room with you and your coaches. And it was fun, not so much for the content we would get in an official interview, but just the hang was great. And those are the memories that I really have over the years. So I just wanted to, let everybody know that, whatever perception that, they have of any of the coaches that we talk to, man to man, it was just a lot of fun learning so much about the game, talking to you and your staff. And, you talk about just a class program top to bottom when you were at Neshaminy. And, we, as much as Jeff beats the drum for the rest, we all secretly were rooting for you guys a lot of times. And it always seemed inevitable that it was going to be North Penn and Neshaminy at some point in the postseason. And we always looked forward to those broadcasts.
Well, and guys, having you guys get up in the box and, they try to find a spot for you guys to go in there and do your thing. That just added, when we knew you guys were coming, we knew it was an important game. And, what you guys have, this not moving on, this kind of being a, hey, thanks for everything kind of a meeting, is a little depressing because, I think you guys did a really good job of promoting high school football in general. Our guys knew when you guys were practiced, it was going to be, was going to be on the radio, and, we had our local guys, but then when, it became an important game. And of course,
Sure.
Playing any team that Dick Beck coached was great. And we had some fun matches. There weren't many of them that, were clunkers, and we've had some of the good ones, and we've been fortunate to be on a couple on the good side of things, and then they've been on the good side of things. They're more than their share. So,
Mark, were they the standard you measured up against?
Yeah, sure. I mean, listen, when Coach Patton, retired, and and then Mike took over that year, and then then Randy came in, and then when Mike went over with Dick, and and Dick always had it going that way, and Junior had it going that way. So, I mean, there was a lot of carryover, and we knew we had to play a really tough, aggressive team that played well and executed well. And, so from day one, from the first day of the week for prep, we knew we had our hands full. And when we had a good team, we were excited to play the game.
Hey, Mark, I'll piggyback what Kyle said. Week 10, we were always on the same page. I'll just tell you that as far as Neshaminy was concerned. We'll leave that there. You've, since leaving Neshaminy, moved around a little bit. People, I don't think, understand what a coach has to go through, parents, fans, whatever. What goes into your decision whether you're going to coach or if you're going to think about coaching?
You know, I think for me, this is what I kind of feel like I do for a living. I mean, I taught phys ed and everything, and it was a blast, and I had a great time and would work with some great people. But, you know, I felt that the support that was above me in the school is vital. And because, I mean, I was so blessed to have such good coaches. I mean, geez, you know, Steve taking over now, what he's done, and Neil and Jay Weidenball, Neil French, Jay Weidenball, Dave Ferreira. We had, you know, we've had Roger Grove on the staff. Tommy Coates came on board with us. I mean, we had guys that, and Biz Keeney came on board. Now they got Kevin Kelly. I mean, you know, it's a fun place to go work because you know, the standard's good. The weight program is, you know, established, and kids want to be a part of it. But, you know, to have that support above you, to feel like people had your back. And I think that was, you know, at the end of it, that wasn't the case. And then, you know, I really wasn't interested in sticking around because, you know, I do things a certain way. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, I wasn't, if I did something that wasn't looked upon correctly, I didn't want to change, you know, my name or hurt anybody else, my family or whatever. So I said, well, I'll just step aside. And then, you know, things happen for a reason. Drew called me, and that was great. And then all of a sudden Drew retired. And then I go down to Imhotep, and Albie offers me a job, and with a great group of kids. And, you know, I was dying last week on the draft because 3 of the kids were in it. So, I mean, it's a great, you know, there I was, I couldn't eat for 2 days caring about them because they're like, when they're home, they're at our house having dinner. So that's what I care about, you know, and so it sounds like I'm rambling here. I don't want to do that, but you know, my gosh, I mean, it's all about the kids. And if you don't care about the kids as an administration, then I don't want to be a part of where you're at.
Mark, you talk about caring about the kids. You've also now taught and coached in different atmospheres. Obviously, the public league is different than Suburban One and the Catholic League and all that. Have you had to adapt your style because of the kid you have, or do you feel like the kids adapt to you eventually?
Listen, you know, and that to me, I think we've had this conversation before, Kevin. I mean, that whole thing is a myth. Kids are kids. I mean, they smell you. If you know what you're talking about and you show them you care, it doesn't matter if you're coming out of a $2 million house or you're coming out of a place that's not very nice. They will attach themselves to you, and they'll love you to death. And, you know, you kick them in the tail when things aren't right, and you hug them when they're good, and, you know, and you show them you care. And, you know, and you show up every day and organize, and you give them that, you know, consistent feedback. They thrive on that stuff. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, and that's my biggest blessing is, you know, I you know, every Christmas, Easter, you know, the big vacations, Father's Day, they remember my birthday. I got people, you know, that's what makes me happy. Not the gold ball that's in the trophy case or any of that kind of crap. It's just the kids that have gone on and just done well and are happy to, you know, that maybe football at that school was a part of them getting better as a human being.
Kev, real quick, you know this, and I'm just going to, what Mark said is so true. And I reminded Mark, he doesn't remember making the comment to me. I first started in this 25 years ago. I think it was Mark's first year. And Mark said to me, he goes, we're not building football players. We're building young men for life. That has stuck with me the entire time in doing this job. And I think about it every time when I ask somebody a question or talk to somebody to realize what we're dealing with. And that's kids.
You know, I really think people get pretty analytical. And, you know, you guys ask good questions, and you have to ask those hard questions, and you have to ask questions that might have some layers to it. And I get all that, you know, and in today's time, you know, the information comes back to people so quick with all these FaceTimes and Twitters and tweets and stuff that happens and stuff. But, you know, when you get to the core of it, you know, when you look at the teams that have success, I mean, Dick has done what he's done for so many years because he has a connection with these kids. You know, and, you know, you look at what Mike did when he was there running the show. You know, he had a great, you know, and Dick's got a couple real good lieutenants working for him. Mike had a couple real good lieutenants. He had Carey, he had the Holmans, he had those guys. I mean, and that crew picked these kids. I had all those guys I had, and and I'm just naming them. And there's other guys that have had good success too. And if you look at what they've got a group of guys that stuck together and took the time to show these kids they cared. And that's how you buy in, because football's hard.
We are hoping, by the way, Dick Beck is trying to join us here. Hold on. This may be him actually now. So, Jeff, can you ask another question while I get this on?
Oh, let's Schwamman.
Oh, yeah. Just a absolutely ridiculous question. I would always remember.
I think we got Dick coming on here too. So
he's on a golf course. Look at him.
Yes, he is. Dick, how are you?
Where's your mask?
Dick's audio is connecting. Go ahead, Kyle.
All right. So, Mark, I was just going to ask, I remember every time that we would have a Neshaminy game, I'd, at some point just mention you on the sideline, describe you, what you're wearing. You always had the towel. When did that start? And is it the same towel every week, or is it a new towel every week? What's that tradition?
It did kind of, it kind of got, I'm a pretty superstitious guy, but one day we played a game and it was just god awful hot. And something, I don't know if I had some sunscreen on. It was a scrimmage, and I threw it over my shoulder, and I was just wiping my face with it because my eyes were just stinging. I couldn't see a thing. And that was actually a pretty good scrimmage. And I said, all right, well, this is pretty cool. The first game was hot, so I brought a towel and I wiped my face with it, and the quarterback wiped his face, and we got, he played good and we won, and okay, that's right. So we did it again, and that's kind of how it went. I'm not going to lie to you. And, it's kind of, it kind of became a deal where, I'm not one of these guys who wears the same underwear, but I'll certainly wear a towel if I have to. So, if that's what the kids wanted, and then that's what the quarterback said. Hey, coach, where's the towel? Because it's, and the one time I didn't have it, his hands were wet. I think he fumbled, and I said, well, we're not going to do that again. So he had one half of the towel, and I had the other half of the towel. That's how we did it. So
nice,
pretty simple.
I think Dick, are you there? Dick is not there.
Kev, I want to point out, once we get Dick on the broadcast here, between you, me, Dick, and Mark, we have 2 state titles between the 4 of us.
Actually, Mark's got a couple with Imhotep,
yeah,
right?
That's right.
Hey.
How competitive were you on individual matchups, like against Beck and all that?
Listen, that was one thing. I mean, we always knew if we played North Penn, if we weren't in the same league, if we were playing North Penn, we're doing something right.
Right.
And that was always a cool part. But then the really cool part of it was a couple of years when we had that Power 10 thing going on, and we had to play some really good teams.
Yeah, Pennsbury in that era.
2001, 2002, 2003, 4. I mean, there were like 5 years where it was, you better hitch it up, because Penn Ridge joined us, West, East, Pennsbury, obviously, Penn Salem, North Penn. Now they're all split up in a couple different directions there, and I think we had Souderton in there too, if I remember correctly. But it's just how it was. I mean, but it was always fun to play these guys. But I worried about everybody. I mean, shoot, didn't matter.
Hello. Is that Mark Schmidt talking?
That is Mark Schmidt talking. It's Dick Beck talking now. Dick, how are you?
I'm sorry, I just joined this. This Zoom thing can be a little confusing, but I knew I could hear that raspy voice of Mark Schmidt talking.
Shut up, Beck. Figure out your phone.
How'd you shoot today? Looked like you were on a golf course when we saw you.
So I shot. I was a disaster early because the driving range was closed, so it was so wet you couldn't get in a driving range. So I shot 46-38. So it was a struggle early, but finished strong.
How crowded was it?
Oh, it's a mob scene. You kidding me? But they don't want anybody touching and going near each other. So
okay.
It was great.
We were talking about the competitiveness of the Neshaminy North Penn games. How was it from your standpoint? And when you guys matched up against one another, what was it like?
I would say it was too competitive because we're used to like in my career, I've been the head coach, I think about, 100 years or whatever. So most of the teams we played, usually, if I'm there 23 or 22 years, I don't know, we win like 19 and lose like 3. Against Neshaminy, we were like 11-11. And that's the stuff that angered me because, obviously, Neshaminy's like our biggest rival. We're playing against. It seemed like every time we were in the playoffs, here we go. We got to play Neshaminy again. And it's we expect when Mark was there. And, it's a tough win. You're not going to show up and you can't overpower them. You can't outman them. You can't outcoach them. Your guys have to play better than their guys, and it was always tough. So,
Jeff or Kyle, go ahead.
I think. Well,
Sean, go ahead.
I'd like to say one thing real
Go
quick.
ahead.
And
Go ahead,
that-
Mark.
This is one thing that and Dick will. When I say it, I'm sure he'll think it because I know in all our games we played each other, and all those games, I don't know how many there are. Okay, you guys would know. There's sometimes it was twice a season, whatever. I honestly don't think there was one personal foul in any game, and that's a true fact. I do not think we ever had one of our kids or one of their kids, we ever had a personal foul where it was a behavioral issue in a game. Late hit, something you just never.
You know what's funny when
that.
Mark says that? It's so true. That's literally what I was thinking about as we're talking. The game was played hard, and look, we're not saying the kids didn't get in each other's faces and be aggressive, but there wasn't any of that extracurricular crap that you had to deal with where you're rolling your eyes. You're like, would you stop acting like a jerk? But the kids always played hard at the end of the game. You know what we did? We shook hands. Congratulations. If they won, congratulations. If we won, congratulations. It wasn't this nickel and dime petty crap that you had to deal with, where sometimes there's other schools that you have to deal with that all the time. And it's, it was so refreshing. You know what I mean? Not that it made me feel better when we lost in the Neshaminy. That didn't make me feel better. We wanted to beat them as much as we wanted to beat anybody. But it was nice enough to see the kids, everybody acted like, competitors. There was a lot of mutual respect, no doubt.
Well, Dick, it's Kyle. 16 and a half years ago, we were in Hershey with your team, and I had the opportunity to ride the bus home with you guys, and we did a live radio show, which still to this day is one of my favorite things we ever did. I remember I think I had Chris Banas on, and we got his dad Augie on to talk to him back and forth as we're coming back from Hershey on the bus. How fresh are those memories still from 2003 for you?
I will tell you. So at that time, when I was in high school, my brother moved to California. So, we didn't really see it. We talked a lot, but we didn't see each other a lot. And my mom at the time, she was do the winters in Florida. She does the winters in Florida, and she still talks about listening to my brother and I talk on the radio as you were taking us. As we were driving back on the bus from Hershey, we did a live radio thing, and my brother had called in, and we had a whole conversation on the air. And she just says that was her favorite time because to listen to us talk and what an important part it was in my life and what a great moment it was to win the state championship. She still talks about that to this day, no doubt.
Jeff?
I forgot all about it, to be honest with you. We did that. I remember the Magic
Well, that's
Bus
age.
ride. Yeah. No, I mean, you work so long in this business, you just kind of forget things. And Dick reminding me of that the day after going dark, I'm sitting here getting a little for a clump. But can I tell you my favorite Neshaminy North Penn moment? And it's not a specific play of the game at all. It's
yeah, tell us.
Okay, so thanks, Dick. So just don't be standing next to some plane. Don't be standing next to some plane.
Inside
the
joke.
interview in my car with the loud muffler, right?
Yes, the loud muffler. Right. He told me he was getting on a plane. All right. So anyhow, so you beat Neshaminy at home. Mark, I don't know how it happened, but you beat Neshaminy at home. I had told you earlier that if Tim Ford interviews you after the game, he's wearing his Neshaminy t-shirt underneath everything. And you guys tried to rip it off of him when you found out. Poor Tim Ford, they tried to strip him down.
Oh.
Well, you realize Tim Ford and I played against each other in high school.
Right. Yeah, you, Joe King, everybody.
Joe King played at Temple when I was at Temple.
Yeah. He claims his greatest fame is getting sacked by Cortez Kennedy. That's
and
his
Mark
greatest claim
Schmidt
to
was
fame.
a GA at Temple when I was at Temple.
How about that?
What was that like?
Crazy time. I just got.
Mark.
Look, you don't have enough time for this meeting. You don't have enough time for this show.
Mark Schmidt's a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. So when I first met Mark gave me this entire conspiracy theory about CB West scouting Neshaminy, not Neshaminy, scouting Norristown.
Right.
When I wasn't even playing it at CB West, and
right.
that how CB West was scouting Norristown while he was at Norristown.
Well, I mean, look,
I was
you're
getting
right.
the whole thing.
It wasn't a conspiracy theory. I mean,
it was fact.
The custodian caught two guys with CB West clipboards in the parking lot filming plays, drawing plays.
Look,
Other than that, it wasn't
when you start the story with the
CB West
custodian
clipboards
found,
at a yard sale, right? Is that how it works?
When you start the story with the custodian found, everybody stopped listening after you said the custodian found. Nobody paid attention to that.
Okay.
Mark, was that?
Mark, don't worry.
Mark, was that under Bruce Arians?
Roger Grove. I was a Roger.
No. When you were at Temple.
No, that was Jerry Burns' first year.
Okay.
Yeah, Jerry Burns.
Yeah. Dick was the center. Yeah.
All right, I'll ask Mark and I'll ask Dick questions we asked Ed and George Banas earlier. What are your feelings about is there going to be a football season in the fall?
Here's my mantra: 100%. There will definitely be a season. Whether it starts a little late or whatever, I think 100% there will be a season.
Mark?
Yeah, I think so. I certainly think so, and I hope so. You're seeing some other states already saying that they're going to try to hang in there and figure this out. And, I think the biggest, Dick, shoot, being a head coach now, me trying to help a new coach find, he doesn't even coach the season yet. And this got dumped in his lap. And, we try to get answers. I mean, I know, people in the state deal and all that kind of stuff. And, let me throw this question. Hey, Beck, what would you think about this though? Okay. Well, you heard about this. You heard about this because Ohio has put this out and they're talking about a baseball in the fall, football in the spring, Ohio. And I ran it by Franklin and he said that he's heard it too. But it's out. PIAA apparently said no to it, but they might revisit it if there's a spike. But they're trying to think they can start this thing towards the end of September. But what about a spring football season for a year in Pennsylvania? What do you guys think about that?
As long as there's a season, I would be in favor of that.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine they would say, okay, well, you can't play football in the fall, but you can play baseball. That would be, to me, I would be like, well, like the rumor that I heard was they're going to play league games and they're going to start in October, right, and there's going to be no state championships, which, I think would like break a lot of guys' hearts. I think everybody wants to be, I think the playoffs are so important to everybody. And I'm hoping that if they're going to start, apparently the NCAA is saying they're going to start the second week in June, saying, hey, they can start football activities in the Big Ten, the SEC. If they start doing that, I think that'll be a good sign for us.
So I agree, but I've also heard that they would scale down the playoffs instead of 16 teams. They go with 8 and try to finish it. Try to keep it. Try to find a way to do that. Now that would be kind of hard to find 8 teams with a shorter season to qualify. Right. I don't know how they would do that, but some people are saying I guess, like everybody's trying to act like they can make this thing work. They would like to try to, if this was a year not of any years, to have champions kind of prevail and give the football teams and, you know, all the fall teams a chance to have a championship, you know, winner kind of a thing. So there's some people pushing for that too. But Dick's right. I think everybody wants, you know, I think
Something.
that has to happen. Has to.
Let St. Joe's Prep play for a title in New Jersey.
I didn't listen to me. I didn't hear anything after Dick Beck's right. As soon as you said that,
Gentlemen,
he had me at Dick Beck is right.
Let me tell you what. It doesn't matter where Dick Beck plays. The cart girl wasn't working today, but let me tell you, Dick found a way to get himself some nourishment. Let's just say that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. I know I don't.
What do you mean
I
the
don't
cart
know.
girl? What
I
does that
never
mean?
know
I
what
don't
I'm
know
talking
you're
about when I play golf with you, right, Beck? All right.
Mark Schmidt and Dick Beck, gentlemen, thank you for being so helpful for all of us. I know Jeffrey wants to say that as well. I mean, every time we called, you answered.
Hey Dick, can I come over certain Tuesdays just to sit there around 3 o'clock and watch tape and talk football?
Here's what we'll do. And I know a lot of people don't know what happens, you know, but when Jeff comes in, the first 10 minutes has to do with me complaining about a referee and showing him video on my huddle about this referee screwed me here and this is what happened there and this is how we got. And you know, Jeff's like, you're right. That was the worst thing ever. That's the, you know, I know he's not being honest with me, but I know he's like playing to my ego, but it's nice enough that he sits there and listens and pretends that it's interesting. So I definitely do miss that. And I will say honestly that your show on Friday nights is the most listened to and tuned in show of any of the coaches and the parents and the people that are really love high school football. What you guys did on Friday night was, I would say, was even better than what they do up in Allentown on the highlight show. I think what you guys do was the big ticket was incredible, and you know it stinks that it's not going to happen anymore. But you guys have brought more entertainment and joy to families of the kids that they talked about and the teams that they talked about than you could ever imagine. I can tell you absolutely that's the truth.
Dick and Mark, we appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys, for jumping in. And here's hoping we'll see you both in the fall as we move forward here.
Thanks, guys. And to dovetail what Dick said, you know, Jeff, you know, that kid at George School, you know, you guys coming and doing his game, that's every bit as important as you doing the Neshaminy.
Well, amen to that.
So,
amen to that.
I think, you know, that's part of it. And you guys didn't just stick around and go to where the big game was. You went to everybody, and you guys should be commended for that too. So congrats. Thank you for all your time.
I appreciate it. Mark and Dick, thank you very much.
You're welcome, guys. Thanks a lot. See you,
Take
back.
care, guys.
All right, see you later. Thank
See
you.
you later,
Bye-bye.
guys. Mark Schmidt and Dick Beck. How cool was that, guys?
Just let there and sit them, let them talk, and that's fine.
That's right.
I
want to say it was the last time that Neshaminy and North Penn played each other when Mark was coaching, and maybe
Mark's still on the line, by the way. So you got
still on the line, but
I want to hear what he has to say.
Just my note that I wanted to lead the broadcast with was that we had two coaches who had combined to win something like 300 or 350 games. And just what a treat it was to have those two guys lined up on the opposite side of the field against each other. You know, and yeah, it's great to do, you know, a week 5 game between a 1-4 team and a 2-3 team. But when you get into district playoffs and those two guys are lined up against each other, there's a little extra juice in the broadcast, and that was always a fun
I can
time.
always say though, Kyle, my last run in with Dick, I got his ass. So that's all.
You got the last word on this one too.
I did. With that, I'm leaving. Goodbye.
Andre Pollard just scored another touchdown for Neshaminy. 8 touchdowns.
Was that the 54-point game?
It was not pretty. I think it was 35-7.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
but not that close.
All right. Our next panel, Jeffrey, you want to introduce?
I don't have my list in front of me. Do you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, representing her father, we talk about what the community.
Oh, I
and
could
the
do
community
this.
feel.
Yeah.
Yes,
Go ahead.
go.
Can we do this?
Yes,
well,
you.
First of all, representing, the fans, okay, and her family and her dad, and the author of this book here.
Which merges into Elvis's
No, that's
face.
okay. I got it right there. How's that, Bridge? Okay. It's called Football Family. That's all you need to know. Bridget Algio is here, and we've got the guy with the deepest voice we've ever heard. John Moses. Should be a bass singer for a Southern country gospel rock band. You got John Moses right there. And the guy that started as an intern, hung out with us, did some games, coming in the scoreboard show, Matt Dudas, and it's a great group, Kev.
It is. Bridget, the first question for you, how are things going? Obviously, we know it's been a tough year with your father passing away, your mom passing away, but how's the family doing? Because we know how much everybody in the community loves them.
Well, thank you for asking. So, I think you just take one day at a time. Anyone who's experienced loss, and particularly the loss of a parent, and both of them, so close. There's definitely moments that are hard, but I also I'm happy that they're together actually, and I'm proud of the lives they led. So for the most part, I'm at peace. I feel every day I live brings me a step closer to seeing them again. So we're all doing well. Thank you.
Absolutely. And, you've talked about that group of men that played at LC, and you wrote about it obviously in the book. Just how much did they mean to your family as opposed to what your father meant to them? We always hear of what a coach means to a player. How much did those guys mean to you as we went through?
I feel like they were my family in a lot of ways. I felt like every year my family got bigger and bigger. I can remember one time I must have been 5 years old, and it was a Saturday, and I was getting up to go down. I was still in my pajamas. I started to go down the stairs, and I turned the corner to go down the set of 14 steps, and it was all lined with football players. They were there for a mass, actually, to start the season. I guess they couldn't get a place at the school, so my parents opened their house to them. So I just sat along with them. They were really, they would show up at our door in the summer to get the keys to the weight room. My parents went to weddings and funerals, unfortunately, and I felt like they were our family, very much so.
Jeff?
No, my only question, Bridge, is having the relationship I did with your dad and I told you this was one of the benefits of working at the radio station. Not only, getting to know your dad and John, I got to know Johnny and Ronnie and you and everybody. For you, football was, I guess, as much a part of your life as getting up and breathing for the most part, right?
Definitely. That's all I ever really knew. Since I was very young, my first experience was my dad was an assistant at Penn when I was born. So I actually had an interview there a couple years ago. I said, I've never been to Penn. And they said, yes, you have, because we're 6 months old. So I never knew anything else. And, at first it was sort of like, I wasn't really gung-ho for it, but it didn't take long. I was probably, by the time I was 7, just the excitement of high school football, just took over. And it's definitely all I've ever known. And it's actually kind of hard to be without it. So when they talked in the last segment about not having a season potentially, that's hard to fathom, because I haven't lived a single year of my life without really being involved and focused on high school football.
So you wrote the book, Football Family, okay? So I know you and I have been going back and forth, whether you were somebody was on the air with me and we're promoting whatever, you get it printed. Did you learn anything else about your dad from the people that talked to you that you didn't know?
I mean, in the past couple of years, I've conducted all kinds of interviews, and I would find out different things. One thing that really, really stuck with me was actually, I I don't even remember who it was, but they told me how my dad, this person had been sick from school and missed a lot of school, and that he was trying to catch up and was really frustrated. And my dad stayed with him after school every single day until he caught up, and it was the better part of a month. And we never knew anything about it. He didn't come home and say, oh, I spent an hour with this particular student. It was just, I think what they said in the last segment, the kids know when you care. And I think that the players knew that my dad, is, for as much as he yelled and was so demanding, he really cared about them. But yeah, I learned to, there was that different stories that didn't necessarily make the book, but yeah, there was definitely anecdotes along the way that I have video footage of. So I'll keep that for future reference for different projects.
Bridget, I know you've been posting the last couple of days about the end of the station. Obviously, I mean, I'm in Northeast Philly, and I worked there for a long time, in that area for a long time. But what does it mean to not have MPV in Lansdale and that Indian Valley area?
Yeah, I mean, it's very sad. I think, like, when you yesterday I was listening to Daryl Berger's Last Comments Please, and Jeff's voice came on, right, to do the little short news and weather. And wow, how I think as a community, I was someone who started listening to see if we were having a snow day. I would hear it coming from my parents' room. My dad listened to high school football radio right up to last season. I mean, he had a little transistor radio by his chair, and he would listen devoutly. So I feel like it's a loss. I think it's something that it was so comfortable to us because the people at WNPV really did care about what was going on in the community. You could really feel that. So I feel like it's a loss. I'm actually, it's kind of sad because, I teach technology, and I see in social media, you don't have deep conversations like you would have now. There's not a back and forth really. Right. It's a real quick drive-by comment, and that's kind of sad. I don't think people realize how they're going to miss that element of radio, but I guess technology also offers other opportunities moving forward. But I do think that it's a loss for the community. I feel that way.
We Kevin and I were reminiscing the Scoreboard Show, and Dan even might remember. It was playoff games, definitely. It was Ronnie, maybe even you, would call the radio station and say, Jeff, I'm in upstate New York. Can you put me on hold so I can listen to the game? And we used to always do that. And it was, and by the way, Kevin, I ended my last shift with a joke before I turned it over to comment, please. You want to hear the joke?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, let me add one thing. Today, my son and I were shopping. We're in Bucks County,
right,
and where we were in a shopping center right across from.
You had the face mask on and everything, right? Got to make sure.
Oh yeah.
I'm kidding.
So we were across. It used to be a Boscov's there, and I said to him, back in, trying to think what year it was, 95 maybe. LC had a playoff run with my brother, and it was the farthest they had gotten. I said, I was sitting with my son in a little Dodge Omni in the Bucks County Boscov's parking lot trying to get WNPV on the radio, and it was coming in and out. So I feel like Joe Ratinsky was there at the church.
Yes, yes.
We were getting bits and pieces of the game, and I had my ear like right up to the dashboard to hear it. But that's how important, WNPV, was. To piggyback off what both coaches said in the last segment, really, I think that you understood the joy that it brought to the community to listen to high school football and to get into the excitement of high school football. I think you were able to do that for so many different thousands of kids, really, and families.
You were in the old Levittown Shopping Center, by the way, the Boscov's.
Yes.
That's where you were.
Across from the train.
That's where. Yes, exactly.
Gone. But yeah, I said it used to be a Boscov's, and we sat right there and listened to that game.
Yeah. Dan Morehouse, that's Levittown, okay? Just letting you know.
I know about Levittown.
Okay, all right. I know you did. That's why I'm telling you.
Now, guys, there have been several legendary Lansdale Catholic players But Jeff, there's one player whose name will never be forgotten. All right, and I don't know if Bridget's aware of this, but this is maybe one of my top 3 memories all time at WNPV. So Elsie is playing maybe, let's say, Perk Valley or Methacton. It was an old Pac-10 matchup at Crawford Stadium, and they're just beating the tar out of them. So it's empty the bench time. It's the fourth quarter. We're looking all through the roster trying to figure out who's coming on, and guy scores a touchdown for Lansdale Catholic and said the name that went with the number on my roster that I was given the week of the game and called the touchdown and da-da-da-da-da. The guy's got the highlight back at the station. And sometime between the end of the game and us starting the scoreboard show, this kid's mom calls the station and says, "That wasn't this kid, it was my son, and his name is Ryan Tiedemann." And so we go into just crazy mode at that point. I go back into the production studio, pull up the highlight, and just straight up cut out the name that I said that was incorrect, and then just deadpan Ryan Tiedemann, like just with no emotion whatsoever. So like you hear the play call as normal, crowd noise, there's whistles, whatever. And then, touchdown, Lansdale Catholic, Ryan Tiedemann. That was my favorite highlight of all the highlights we showed on the
we had a couple favorite
Tiedemann and Anthony Blimblin, those famous names.
Can we tell the Anthony Blimblin story?
Well, let's bring the other guys in.
Let's bring the other guys in.
Save it for last because they'll enjoy it.
All right. Matt Dudas is a North Penn grad who started under Kyle. He started with you, correct?
Yeah, he did.
A little bit. Yeah, I actually never had Matt as a student because my first year of teaching, he was in the advanced broadcasting class, which I didn't teach at that point, but definitely was able to have him come aboard and help us out with our broadcasts.
He did stats for you, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what was it? You were basically, Matt, the gopher, weren't you, for a while?
I might have got Kyle a Big Mac or two during my time as one of his interns. Yeah, that might have happened. There might have been a coffee purchased for him, but no, there was a lot of really good memories. You go back, that 2006 season was the year I started, and actually, I was thinking about some of the crazy memories we had. I talked to Kyle yesterday. One of my favorite memories was week 10 of the 2007 season. Have we discussed that yet earlier in the program?
We have not. But make sure you get back with why it happened.
So week 10, Kyle's got to get the playoff points tabulated, and we're driving back from North Penn, getting it laid on them a little bit by CB South. Eric Reynolds ran for about 300 yards, and we're driving back, and Kyle's got to get to the station. So we're going down Allentown Road, and I'm in the car behind him, and he's making a left onto Weichel up by Inglewood. And let's just say he makes a little bit of a wide turn and just smokes this curb and bounces back into the street, gets back, tabulates the points, and you know what? None of them were wrong. So no harm, no foul. But that was I think he needed to visit a mechanic after that. So yeah.
The points were right. The alignment was way off.
What did you like? You ended up doing minor league baseball. What was there anything that could you have possibly learned anything that helped you in that assignment down the road?
Well, I learned how to have a really, really balanced diet by you guys at the diner. So that was really good prep for minor league baseball because you're not making a whole lot of money. That's probably where you're going to be eating at, is a lot of diners. Mm-hmm. No, we had a lot of good times. I mean, I was thinking about, I did 3 PIAA baseball state championships. I was on the broadcast for 1 football state championship. I did, 2 or 3 seasons worth of high school football games. I think I did 6 or 7 Quakertown, Penn Ridge Thanksgiving games. So there's just so many good memories in there. I think one of the things, and I'm not sure if you guys hit on it earlier, that I was proudest of, the second game I did in 2006 was the 309 Bowl of it was Souderton and Quakertown. And Ronnie Powell ran for about 250 yards on his first 5 carries, I think, in that game. And to think about where we were 2 years later, obviously with his tragic passing, but how well everyone was able to put together just, really well done montage and highlight reel of everything that he did. And, I think that as funny as we can make things, it was really professionally well done with how we handled it. And of course, that game ends, with Justin Powell, scoring a touchdown and pointing skyward. And it was really one of the more powerful moments that, I've been a part of in any broadcast I've done.
And
I just downloaded that. I just downloaded that for my grandkids to listen to in the future.
And Ed actually mentioned Ronnie Powell today, and he talked about, and you could tell it got a little choked up by just the thought of what happened with Ronnie. And obviously, the impact that had on the community. John Moses, I think I was your color analyst on your first game on MPV. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could have been. We definitely did a couple games together.
Yeah, and I think I stepped all over your touchdown call.
Oh, God. Yeah. I think that was
whoa. Don't. I had to get my ven out because Dobus would never let me in. Anyway, go ahead.
There.
I think that was a Penn Ridge North Penn game, and I can't remember which team it was for now. I still have the highlight.
It was Mike Class, I think.
Yeah, definitely a Mike Class team. And tight end, throw to the tight end, crossing over the middle. Guy makes a terrific one-handed catch with the left hand and brings it in, runs past the safety, and as soon as he brings it in, Cooney comes in with "Whoa!"
Absolutely.
That's a radio no-no, just to let you know. Okay,
yeah,
that's a radio no-no.
What did you learn in your time with us?
I just want to double check with John. You came to us through Mark Zumoff, didn't you?
That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
You guys were sort of my first position that was not really baseball. You were the first real, opportunity that I'd found for myself. I finished college in 2012, went and worked for an independent minor league baseball team in Abilene, Texas that summer. And yeah, Jeff and I got connected sort of later that summer. I was planning to come back to the area and look for something to do. And, Jeff sort of brought me into the fold. I am sort of forever thankful to have met and know you, Jeff, and for, you've given me a great start. Doing some high school games, doing Gwynedd Mercy games. I will say, I never really had my own sort of high school football experience. I went to Friend Select School, which is a small Quaker school in Center City, and I didn't grow up playing football. But once I sort of got into the second or third year of doing games with you guys, I just realized how much the community rallies around high school football, and just sort of how authentic an experience it is. For everybody that's involved, for the athletes, for the coaches, the high school coaches, they put hours and hours, they put a lot of time and effort into creating game plans every week and helping their kids stay. But, the high school football coaches don't get paid a lot of money. They do it for a lot of other reasons. Some of the things that Mark and Dick were talking about before sort of stuck with me. So, I'm just really thankful to sort of have the experience of being a member of the high school football community, even though I didn't grow up in one.
It was, and we should point this out, and I'm going to, Bridge, hang out for a little bit, because we're going to talk about Jim Church in a little bit, so I want you to hang out for that. But
we also have Vince Paravecchia here.
Vincenzo.
Yes.
Good, we'll get him in here. But I just want to say, as far as, because we've got, I've got Matt and I've got John here. First of all, we had Schwam doing play-by-play, okay? Yeah. That's where we start. That's how high the bar is right there, okay? And then you wonder, well, what am I going to have? As my decisions go, what am I going to have underneath him when I had Darryl, okay? Darryl was, you could put anywhere, and he would be good at what he did. But then I got John, and John's work ethic was very similar to Kyle's, and Matt's was very similar to Kyle. And I knew that when these guys got on the air, in what capacity, we didn't slip. It wasn't like, A, B broadcaster. It was like A and just a little bit under that. There's a reason Kyle had the top job. These guys, John's went on to success
as Trenton Thunder.
Trenton Thunder. He's doing Ryder. He's doing Princeton. I'm watching him on TV. on Saturdays, you know, doing the college game. Matt had his success in the minor leagues. So this is the quality that we had at the radio station. That really makes me the proudest. Travis Sparks up there in Coal Country, they had great broadcasters up there. But I've always said I will go to war with any team we put together against anybody else in the state.
And we were blessed with great color analysts. John DeSimon, who obviously couldn't join us today.
Joe Rutinsky mentioned
Joe Rutinsky for LC games. Mike Carey was incredible.
Yeah.
When he
Sanderson.
stepped away, Dave Sanderson, Tim Sorber joined us. Joe Heyer.
Quite a while, yeah.
I mean, we had incredible color analysts for a long, long time.
And when Jeff said that, you know, we'd put our booth up against anybody, it didn't just necessarily mean the broadcast. It just meant, come try to take our space, because I got Mike Carey next to me.
Exactly. You're going to mess with Carey? Go ahead.
The
Hey,
one year
Kyle.
we had my broadcasters can beat up your broadcasters. Remember that year?
That's right.
Hey, Kyle, I got a great story for you on that one. I was thinking about this in 2007 opening night. We're playing. It's North Penn St. Joe's Prep at PW.
Yes.
And the press box there was about 10 feet long.
Correct.
And Sports Fever shows up, and I didn't even know they were going to be there that night. And it's the last week of August. It's 100 degrees out that day. Mike Carey and I, about 45 minutes from kickoff, are standing outside looking at the press box, trying to make sure it's properly stabilized, that it's not going to give out during this entire game. And he's like, I don't know how we're going to be able to do this game. And no, that's just the kind of thing. We carved out a little spot, and we were good to go. So
Do you remember, Matt? I think you were interning with me when we were at Owen J. Roberts.
Oh, yep, yeah.
Okay, we'll do the Ridley story in a little bit, but so Owen J. Roberts has
That was on my list.
Tremendous athletic facility, like NFL-sized press box. And for whatever reason, the inside of their press box was like closed, and LC was playing at Perk Valley or at Owen J. Roberts. So we're on top of the press box. And Matt had set up the equipment, and I think I just said, like, hey, I'm going to go down to the field, talk to the coaches real quick. Anything comes up, you know, let me know. And Matt, like, is sprinting down to the field. And I think you were still in high school at this point.
Yep,
so
yeah.
typically he would just call me Mr. Berger, but he comes down, he's like, Kyle. I'm like, oh, this is serious. This dude from Owen J. Roberts, it might have been their athletic director. I don't know who it was. But, like, we had set up our broadcast equipment right at the 50-yard line. And he says, if you don't move your equipment, I'm going to call the police. I'm like, what? He's like, we need to be on the 50-yard line. And so, like, I literally moved our equipment to the 49-yard line at that point and said, arrest us if you want.
The best part about that story, it was Daryl, Dobus, you, and me at that game. It's week 3. And it's hot out that day.
Oh, okay? It was 100 degrees, yeah.
And they had the press box dark, and they had us on the roof.
Yeah.
And I felt like we could touch the sun. We were that close to where we were. I mean, it was incredible. The athletic director, I'm surprised you guys had – I think you had a Miami connection there, didn't you? They're at the
Strock.
Yeah, exactly. You
Strock's
still couldn't get
brother.
us in the press box.
Yeah, it was Strock's brother.
Unbelievable.
Wasn't it? It was Strock's brother. Hey, listen, just so everybody's concerned, that day Cooney and I were at 65 with the air conditioner.
Yeah, the
We
air
were okay
conditioner
back
was
in the
blasting,
studio.
and we had ice cream.
Hey, can we get Vinny on here? Was
Yeah,
Vinny
go.
there?
Yeah.
Vincenzo, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. How's those babies of yours?
Oh, they're growing quick. It's been a little crazy teaching both of us from home during all this with 2 kids here, but we're doing the best we can, you know.
Vinny's laughing at everybody on Facebook complaining their sleep is out of whack because his has been out of whack for about 3 years because of the kids.
Yeah.
So, Vinny, you were a contributor. What was it like? What was your experience like with us?
You know, for me, high school.
I want to hear somebody say that it sucked and like we were awful to deal with, Jeff.
Oh yeah, sure, Kev.
Don't worry, your wife was calling later.
Okay.
So, you know, for me, it's always been about giving back. And, you know, I loved it. And I always had fun calling, you know, getting calls from you guys whenever you would call me, depending on the game I was at. And, you know, it wasn't too much, but I'll never forget the first time you called me. And, Jeff, you're like, so how's your wife? And I'm like, how do you possibly know who my wife is? And you go on to tell me that, you know, you helped with this big fundraiser to help her out when she was
She was right before her surgery. I stayed on the air for 24 hours. We raised $10,000.
And, you know, for me, all the people, including you, who helped her before I even knew her, you know, because I didn't meet my wife until 2013, you know, I have you guys to thank in part for the life I have now. And that to me means more than anything. And, you know, Kev, when I first started, you know, I was this little college kid who ran into you, and I'm like, oh God, here's the legend, and here's me up against Mr. Legendary.
Who the hell did you see? If you're calling me a legend, jeez.
Well, you know, but when I'm a college kid in 2003, you know, covering sports for the first time, and now, you know, I'm going on 16 years now doing high school football around here in Lower Bucks and all over the place. You know, this has been a pleasure. And, you know, for me, you know, it's about community, and, you know, kind of like Jonathan was saying before, I didn't really grow up in a huge football like community. You know, I went to a private Catholic high school over in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, and, you know, we had our teams and we had our program ourselves, but we didn't really have like the big surrounding community, the big rivalries and stuff. And just getting to be a part of that, you know, not just with football, but with all sports in Lower Bucks and Upper Bucks eventually, and, you know, now kind of everywhere depending on where they need me in football season. It's been fun. And, you know, it's hard to see when, to me, the hardest thing is when stations, you know, when stuff like this happens, because it's such a community thing. You know, it's about so much more than just a radio station. It's about the community. It's about the people, and, you know, it's a part of all of us. You know, high school football, at least for me, and for all of us here in this panel, it's been a part of our lives for years and years. And, you know, when stuff like this happens, it's like a little piece of that goes away. And so for me, it was a joy, and I always had fun with you guys.
Vinny, I appreciate those kind words. And yeah, and I think that's what drew all of us. I mean, we all got drawn in because it was our family. It was, you didn't do it for money. That's for damn sure. I mean, you just didn't. I mean, you did it because either you were looking to advance in you know, in your career, or you did it because you loved it. And sometimes you started out with the idea of you did it to advance in a career if you were young, but you also learned that you had to love it if you were going to advance. And that's what I think we all kind of felt as we moved along. Jeffrey?
Kev, I would simply say that, and Schwam, you could chip in too, because you've been a part of this for a long time. Everybody says, well, you were great. No, this was a group. This was, nothing works if you don't do, you know, a lot of the lifting and carrying during the course of the show. Schwam sets us up with a great broadcast. Vinny calls in with a great report. Matt's helping out as an intern doing a broadcast, or John stepping in on a big Friday night because Kyle can't do a job. It all came together because of everybody. And everybody says, well, you know, you say that because, no, you say it here because it was the truth.
That's true. Guys, thank you. We're going to
can we hang on to Bridget for a little bit?
Bridget, yeah, hang on.
About Jim Church and Dan too.
Hang on. Now this is where the fun's going to begin. Because we're going to talk a little bit about Jim. Brian Hensel, do I unmute you there?
Unmute Brian, because I mistakenly.
I'm going to unmute Dobus as well, even with his Pensbury, with his Pensbury picture.
Yeah, and we told Daryl no porn, but okay.
And then I'm gonna bring that into this as well.
Pensbury there, for crying out loud.
Because we're gonna talk Jim Church here.
Well, yeah, and I forgot my train of thought, but go ahead.
Jim obviously is the biggest name ever at WNPV. I think we all will agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll start with you, Jeff. You had a comment the other day on comment, please, about Jim and what you learned from Jim. Could you repeat that?
Oh, grounded. He kept me grounded. He kept me grounded because when I came over from WBCB, and I'm not knocking BCB, I really didn't learn a whole lot over there. I learned mostly 99% radio at WNPV. But I was one of those guys that, I thought I was going to ESPN, the National Hockey League, yada, yada, yada. And Jim kind of said, yo, just slow down. It's about, let's take care of the kids and the families. I was like, okay. And I caught on real quick, and then he would tell me his relationships with the different people. And Bridge, I mean, he always spoke of your dad. I mean, always spoke of your dad. I know you're a big fan of his.
Oh, a huge fan. In fact, Phil Hunt and Jim Church were the first two names that I knew with WNPV when I was a child. And, I kept in touch with Jim Church. I want to say that I visited him the first North Penn LC alumni game, that Thanksgiving they did a couple of years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And it was such a joy to talk to him because he still was so super excited about just talking about games in detail. I listened to him for years on the bench, and I listened to, teams and coaches and players from multiple sports, different schools. It wasn't just Lansdale Catholic. Dan and I, we'd eat our cereal listening to On the Bench. Sometimes my sisters were on there. My
Bridget,
dad.
what time was that show on? Do you remember?
So I feel like it was 9 or 10.
Guys?
9:05. 9:05.
It's 9:05.
Join me tomorrow. Join me tomorrow at 9:05. The emergency broadcast signal could be going on.
No, let him finish. Let him finish.
Go ahead.
But no, he really, the word community keeps coming up, and I feel like Jim Church did so much to establish that.
Yeah.
That I would happily listen to the Perk Valley girls volleyball team. He was so excited about, where they were at. He knew their stories. He asked great questions, and you were, just involved in listening. You were very engaged in it.
I would add this, if I could, Kevin. This kind of echoes a little bit of what Jeff said, and a lot of what Bridget said is, when I came out of college in 2003, I started working for the station, and I was doing like the B game. In fact, I believe Dan was my first color commentator at a Glen Mills game.
Yep, partner.
Yes. But, out of college, obviously, your goal, if you were a broadcasting major and you had experience calling big time college football, is like, hey man, I want to latch on with a college. I want to get a high level minor league gig, maybe work up into the pros. The thing that Jim established at WNPV was a culture of, this can be a destination. It doesn't have to be a stepping stone. Now there are some guys who have kind of just come through and moved on to bigger and better things, and that's great. But there was some comfort in knowing that Friday night meant something, regardless of who the teams were. And you felt like you were a part of the community by being able to bring these games to the folks, families, friends, neighbors, and that the grass isn't necessarily always greener. And I would say definitely over the last like 5 or 6 years when I was at the station doing games, I really enjoyed that aspect of it more so than I did as a 25-year-old kid. I think that's the lesson I learned over the years that maybe I didn't learn right away from Jim, but the legacy that he established allowed me to realize that in the later years.
And
that's well put. Yeah.
And I will put that part of the thing with Jim was Jim always took a legitimate interest in how you were doing, how your family was doing. It was something that was not phony. It was something that when he asked you about, like he would ask me about my dad all the time, and he would talk about that. And when my dad got cancer, he
right
about it. But that being said,
wait, can I just say this? You are right. You are right. He would ask about family, your friends, and how everybody was doing, but never ask him for $1.
That's true. And that's where I was going to turn this. We all have our own Jim Church memories that are humorous.
Well, are we gonna let everybody else in now?
Yeah, we're going to let everybody in on this one. I'm going to start with Kyle, and Kyle can start with the Ridley story. Go ahead.
One of
you
our
tell them about that.
Yeah. One of our favorite stories goes back to, and Matt, you were with me. So what, 2007, I think it was?
Yeah, 2007. I think it was the district semis that
It was
night.
quarters, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the worst, relative speaking, North Penn teams that we covered.
Mhm.
They had struggled that year and got a tough draw and had to go down to Ridley. You had a pretty decent team. Second round of the playoffs. That's
Well,
right.
they had actually just beaten Downingtown West, I think it was the week before, and I think they had advanced by that. Yeah, so they started off 0-2. Yeah, to your point.
Yeah, so we get down there, and of course, Friday blue route traffic, and the setup in this situation was Matt was with me. Was Mike Carey our color?
Yeah, I believe Mike was there. Yeah.
All right, so it was me, Mike Carey, Matt, and Jim. And we had all the equipment with us. And for those that don't know, when you get into the district playoffs, there is a check you have to give to the host athletic director. It's like a broadcast rights fee to offset loss of ticket revenue or some.
Which in turn they have to give you a place to broadcast.
Presumably, yes. So
in theory.
And a lot of times, especially in our area, people know WNPV and not that you get like VIP treatment, but they recognize, hey, a radio station's here, let's take care of them. So we get to the stadium nice and early. We were probably there at 4:30, no later than 4:30. And everything's locked. And then like from the inside of the stadium, this, their athletic director, who is probably in his 60s or early 70s, emerges and is like, not even, hey, welcome to Ridley. How can I help you? Just, where's the check? And so we all kind of look at each other like, oh, okay. And it's sometimes, you have to take a step back and let the experienced guy handle things. And at that point, I think Jim said to the athletic director, listen to me, young man. It was just awesome. Put him right in his place. Unfortunately, didn't get us a spot in the broadcast booth. We wound up, fortunately, Phil, our general manager, had the foresight to send a pop-up, for lack of a better term, beer pong table with us to Ridley, because they set us up in the bleachers. The superintendent down there was using the press box as like a luxury suite for his friends and family. So we had no cover. Fortunately, it was, it wasn't raining or anything, but they basically ran an extension cord out of the press box to us, and we had to plug in all our equipment there. We were on the aisle of the bleachers across the way from the Ridley marching band. So after every first down or something, you just hear like, wah, from the band, and it was just really funny to see, Jim just kind of say like, I got this. Let me talk to this guy, because, I was 27 years old. I was probably not going to handle it as well as he did. So I was fortunate to have Jim on our side that night. And he kind of, even though we didn't necessarily get a broadcast spot, we might not have made it in the gate if he wasn't there.
And that's what $325 gets you from the PIAA.
Yes. I'll tell a story. I was covering.
I have, you do yours first. I have two. One involves Bridget, but go ahead.
Okay. I was covering actually North Penn and Parkland at Neshaminy. When it was Austin Scott, right? The running back who ended up
final 2002.
Final.
I know where we're going. Okay.
All right. And so Austin Scott ran nuts. It's like he ran for like 500 yards, 7 touchdowns, like literally, including Rob is it Rob Malinsky was the head coach up there?
Malotsky,
yeah.
All right. Malotsky had him in the game up 30 or 28 with 2 minutes to go just to get another touchdown in. And he broke one for about 35 yards. His team's going to the state final, everything. Broke one for another yard, put it in the mercy rule. It was just clearly to show up North Penn. Jim was not happy. And Jim was really not happy. And I had the little earpiece in, and it was one of them like basic primitive setups where you're trying to find, kind of like what Bridget was talking about, trying to find WNPV in like the static at that point. And Jim is like, this isn't going to stand. Yeah, right. So the next morning at 9:05, Jim goes on and mentions this and everything and gives a little lecture to Rob Molotsky. This is the way you conduct yourself. This is the way you don't show people up everything. So the following week, they played the state championship game on Friday night. I think because they were worried about weather. Austin Scott scores maybe 3 touchdowns. They blow whoever they were playing out. But
I think it was Coatesville.
He gets pulled, okay, from the state title game. The next morning, Jim comes on the bench. Rob Molotsky must have heard what I said because he pulled this kid out and just basically like – and I love Jim, and I'm like, Jim, the signal I don't think reaches up to Parkland, you know? Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, my 2 are, the first one is Souderton. I'm setting up for a basketball game, doing it by myself for whatever the reason. If you've ever been to Souderton, you got to crawl under everything and plug
the old
stuff
Souderton.
in. The old Souderton. And I'm dirty and I'm sweaty and I'm thirsty. I forgot my wallet, okay? So Jim comes over and he says, I'm here. You want me to do the game with you? I said, sure, no problem. So we're sitting down prepping, and I'm going like this. Look, I'm looking for $1 to go get a water. And I said, Jim, can I borrow $1? I left my wallet in the car. I need to get some water. And all of a sudden, I'm right next to Marley Natlin here. Can't hear a thing. And I go, Jim, can I borrow $1? And Jim's like looking at, and I couldn't get $1 out of him to go get a bottle of water. That's not a joke. And he would say to me, that'll teach you, you'll need to bring your wallet with you. And I said, okay, I'll bring it. Next one is I'm on the bus doing the magic bus ride, Schwam, for the Lansdale Catholic game. You guys just win the state title, Bridge, okay? So we're coming home, and I get on. Now, Schwam will know. It's hard to sit on that bus and keep that broadcast on, especially
you're on a flip phone. Yeah, you had a flip phone, literally.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, you got one leg out the window, one up, and people sitting next to you. And I told the story how your dad actually had to calm me down at one point because I was really getting aggravated. And now I carry this for 2.5 hours. We get off the bus. I'm not off the last step, and the microphone gets ripped out of my hand. Literally out of my hand. And he goes, give it. And all of a sudden, hi everybody, Jim Church here, or the Lansdale Catholic parking lot right now. And what we want to do is, here, I got Coach Halvey, a couple of daughters right over here. I know your name. Tell everybody who you are. And Bridge, you might have been one of them.
Well, I have to say, you did an awesome job on the Magic Bus Ride because we had you on as we were coming back from Hershey in the car.
Wait, is the Jim Church imitation okay? No, go ahead.
That's pretty good. And it was very nice because the station did give my parents the complete coverage of that whole week. And that ride was really special. And I actually was my sister and I, we were there for a little bit, took some pictures, and then we raced back to get the house ready for the company that was coming over to celebrate the state championship. And of course, the first thing we did was turn on WNPV. We were cutting up pepperoni and cheese and getting everything ready with the radio on. So, yeah.
Do you remember who he interviewed?
I know for sure that he interviewed Maggie and Mike.
Right, but it wasn't Maggie and Mike off the bus. It was 2 of your other sisters.
I think it was Mary Eileen right off the bus.
Okay.
I'm feeling Veronica because I know Mary Frances was with me getting ready.
And it might have been. I mean, I knew Ronnie at that point, but maybe it might have been Ronnie. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can listen to it.
and of course, we should mention Anthony Blin, shouldn't we?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Council Rock's best player ever.
Yeah. Go ahead. Tell the story. I'm going to go check the kitchen for a duck.
Okay. All right. So Anthony Blin, at this age, Kyle, I think, were you doing sideline at that point?
I believe so. Yeah, I was doing sideline, and Jim was still in the booth with Tim at that point. So
might have been Tim's last year. Yeah,
I believe it was. So, yeah, I guess what happened was, there was one of those, again, late in the game situations, and those are always tough for broadcasters because you're literally looking through the scrap heap of your notes and trying to find out who's wearing what number and whatnot. And I guess, Council Rock had a guy run into the end zone, and Jim just kind of invented a name as he scored. And he said it was
30, the 20, he's going to go.
And then he just made up the name as he went into the end zone. It just came out as something like Anthony Blim Blim. And so we would always reference that name whenever we, didn't know a guy's name. I was Anthony Blim Blim.
Kyle,
Yeah.
do you remember that we were going to hatch a plan where we were going to devise an email and send it to Jim at the station from Mrs. Blin Blin?
Yes.
Thanking him for mentioning her son's name on the air. But I think Jeff was the cooler head and said, no, we can't do that. That's too cruel.
Yeah, the fun police.
Yeah, the fun police stepped in.
Somebody took the grief on Monday morning. You guys always had to remember that, okay? Hey, so do we tell? Let's say, Bridge, you're welcome to hang out. I wanted you a part of that when we were talking about Jim.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and you're welcome to hang because I'm bringing these guys in and we're going to reminisce. We'll probably talk about talons too. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I do have to run, but this makes me feel very at home. All of you have such great memories talking about sports and remembering every single detail. That's what I grew up with. So I really appreciate you having me on, and I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do because this was really fun, and really appreciate the memories that you gave us and you were part of. So thank you.
Bridget, thank you for joining us. We and all the best to the family.
Thank you very much.
Bridget Algia joining us. All right, so let's bring in the rest of the crew here. Dudis is with us. Moses is with us. Daryl,
open all the mics too.
They're all unmuted, I think.
Can I just say this? I have to apologize to Brian Hensel because I was talking about great color analysts and guys you just plugged in anywhere, whether he came to the studio or he did color analytical work.
And a hell of a coach.
I sent you. Did you get the audio I sent you?
Who, me?
No, Brian. He's not unmuted. Unmute Brian.
He should. He is on. Oh,
no,
wait.
Okay, now he is. No. Now he's muted again.
He's
there
muted.
we go.
Now he's good.
There you go.
I'm off now?
Yeah. Did you get the audio I sent you?
I do not have a video, no.
No, audio.
Oh, audio, yes.
Did you get it?
The one you just sent recently?
Yeah.
Yes, I've got that.
Okay.
Okay.
Want to make sure.
Okay. Well, thank you for the kind words. I got to tell you, it was interesting to roll into the WNPV family, because I didn't realize how hard you guys worked at your job. You paced the sidelines for years, and when I stepped away from coaching, and Jeff, you had invited me to come back into the booth and continue to be involved with local high school football. I was absolutely blown away at the level of professionalism that I was greeted with. From doing games with Kyle or Kevin or with Daryl and Mose, I think we did a game once too. It was just incredible. I remember I was like a nervous little kid the first time I was going to go on the air, and Daryl did a great job of just kind of keeping me calm and saying, hey, listen, just treat it like you're in your living room and having a conversation. It was a great transition. And just working side by side with those guys was absolutely incredible. And an experience that I really never thought I'd have as a high school coach moving into that realm. But it was a great experience, and I'm grateful for that.
Fooled another one, Nolan.
No, we always had the knack of finding the people that would work.
Yeah.
Because I would talk to you, I'd talk to Schwan, we'd say, hey, what do you think? And boom, boom, boom. And I think we had some really good people. And Brian just is like right there at the top.
Yeah.
Can I jump in there, Kev?
Yeah, go ahead.
The thing I remember about Brian, Kyle, you'll remember this too. It was Brian, it was your first summer camp as head coach at CB West. And Kyle and I had gone over to, get some background information, introduce ourselves to you and all. And you took us into the room where all the assistant coaches were. And you made it sound like we were, the non-Perel football information people in Bucks County. And it was like anything these guys need, you make sure they get it. And you just welcomed us with open arms from the beginning. And I'll never forget that. And we Kyle and I both really appreciated that too.
Let me bring in Daryl Dobas here while Daryl's
Is Daryl here?
Daryl's poster is there. Daryl, on those of us on the Zoom, first of all, Daryl, show the haircut.
No,
please.
wait a second. Is that a football or is that a Bernie Perrant down making a save? I can't tell which one it is. One of the two here.
That is an authentic program from 1985. That's me on the cover of the Pennsbury North Penn game. I think it's the last time Pennsbury beat North Penn, actually.
That, by the way, is how bad of a season 1985 was for Pennsbury to put the punter on the cover of the program. Come on.
Punters are people too.
That's right. Hey, this is what
Colorado.
happened.
Only in Colorado.
This is what happens when you're dating the photographer. You get on the cover there. That was actually our best season. That was a 10-0 year. I didn't get to play that much, thank God.
Oh, that was our best season. We were 10-0 that year. Okay.
I'm patting myself on the back for you there, Daryl.
What? I said I didn't play. I mean, what the hell?
Hey, listen. No, Daryl.
Besides, that's as good as it's going to look right now because there's the hair.
Daryl, you're 10-0. You get the brag. You're 10-0. You get the brag.
All right.
It was a fun time.
Daryl, you mentioned you posted something on Twitter yesterday. I think.
Hey, we got to make sure Matt's unmuted too if he wants to jump in here.
Yeah, Matt's on. Okay. Everybody is. Oh wait.
Okay, but never mind. Just
Who's running the show, Chuck Irwin?
The PI's control. He's angry.
Kevin, real quick, by the way, when Hensel, coach, it was nice of you to say that I calmed you down because you asked any of the other guys, I drove them absolutely bat crazy. So the fact that I calmed you down is actually saying something.
No, thank you. It was appreciated.
Kevin, you can mute Daryl now.
I'll do it. All right.
Daryl, you posted some thoughts yesterday about the station. Just kind of what are your thoughts right now on, as it comes to an end?
Pain. I mean, it's you guys brought me in a little bit. I say you, meaning Jeff, Dan, brought me in a little bit when I was doing stuff elsewhere, covering Strathaven primarily, and had some fun with me. Let me in from time to time, and like then and now, I don't shut up. But it was fun. I had you guys locked in, and it's been said all over the place. I had you locked in from wherever I was going or coming from with Strathaven to hear you guys on the Scoreboard Show. I could not go fast enough to get within signal strength. I had to, and it was locked in the whole way. I didn't care what else was on the radio. That was locked in because I wanted to know what was going on. And it was always fun. It was informative. It was just a great time to have in the car after, you're winding down from whatever game you're doing. And it was just phenomenal. And to come in and do the internet games and go out and try to text an entire playoff game from Quakertown. You remember that, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Remember, we weren't broadcasting the game on the internet, but I was actually on our website updating via computer, typing in play-by-play.
Yeah, we used to do that, yeah.
While Kyle was calling a playoff game elsewhere. So, Kyle left the internet. I took the internet, and then I got to do a few games when Kyle couldn't, school responsibilities and whatnot. And then obviously, Kyle's moving on to bigger and better things himself professionally. Then I got to do it. So it was a climb, but it was a lot of fun. And just to come in on Friday nights when I had nothing going on for the Scoreboard Show, Kyle's doing a game, and we're all sitting in the office, and I had to laugh when Brian said we worked hard. And on Friday nights there was long droughts of work and then quick moments of insanity.
Yeah.
And it was all fun regardless, but we would just sit back and have a blast. And I wasn't even supposed to be there, but yeah, it was such a good time. We loved it so much. It's gonna be tough Fridays coming up in the fall.
Well, and obviously it's strange that for us, we're all looking about what may happen in the fall just with high school football in general. But for us, it is going to be different, that we're not going to have the outlet. It's funny. It's funny in a sense where there would be, and Dan will talk about this. We'll talk about Nolan here since, everybody else will get roasted, I'm sure, at some point. Dan and I had a front row seat to some of Jeff's meltdowns.
Well, I think I was the first with that. I think he inaugurated that.
Oh, that's true.
3, 2, 1. Go ahead.
Remember this?
And it was one of those things where we took it serious, but we also kind of knew when Jeff would have his moments to just let it pass over. Correct, Dan?
Yeah, well, we'd let him blow off some steam, and then I'd say, "Are you done?"
Are you done? Yeah.
And you usually would do it with push-ups in the office, so that wasn't me.
But it's called the glare.
But see, in my defense, my attitude was at that point, if we can't be the best, why are we doing it? And Kyle talked about being too serious and that kind of stuff. And that's in the days when I was a little bit too serious. I would agree 100%.
Dan? Morehouse?
Yeah, I agree. He would, you would get carried away, Jeff. I mean, it was something different each week, but it didn't last long. And when we were on the air, nobody ever knew what was going on in the studio behind the scenes, and we put on the best show we possibly could.
And we would get around week 6, and you and I have talked about this. Week 6, we would go, why the hell are we still doing this? Yeah. Like, and then by week 8, we're fine again.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, like we would be burned out by
we'd have
week
1 or 2 weeks of like, what are we doing?
This is it. This is it. The last year. We're not doing this again.
You know what?
And
though,
not just me.
By the time week 10 rolled around and we did the point show and all, it was like, geez, this season flew by. You know, we're the 10
and
weeks.
new blood helped though too. When we would get John would come in or Brian came in, we got new blood
Matt.
and kind of picked us up. When Matty came in,
Mike Kohler, remember Mike Kohler? Came in after Matt left us. Remember Mike Kohler, Jeff?
Oh yeah, he was your office intern.
Yeah,
did career study with you guys.
I went to high school with his uncle. We had that connection.
Was he with the kid? Oh wait, John Moses, you may be challenged here. Was he the guy with the real deep bass voice? Was that Mike Kohler? Because we had an intern with a real deep, and his cousin was a guy doing overnight radio with CBS.
Yeah, that was Mike.
John, I'm telling you, dude, this guy might have challenged you for deepest
voice ever.
I'm going to the office Monday. I think, dude, I'm going to go get his. I'm going to go in Monday. I'm going to try to pick up some audio on him. I think I still have.
Now, we've also had some funny moments that never made air.
That will never make air.
Well, no. Here's one. Back in the days where we did internet and the radio game, we had 2 engineers, and one was Chuck, who would do the radio, and we had the guy with the "Take it, Jim." Who was that?
Oh, Gibby. No, dude, executioner.
The executioner. Yeah.
Okay, so Jason Gibson. All right, so I'm covering the North Penn game. It was North Penn Neshaminy down at North Penn, and I was in charge at the Courier at that point of the high school sports, and I had another writer with me who will remain nameless.
Can you give his initials?
Her initials were JW.
Okay.
And WNPV only had 2 bathrooms, 1 male, 1 female. On a Friday night, on a Friday night, not everybody paid attention to which bathroom it was or was needed because you didn't expect women to be coming in.
Right.
So we come back from this game and we're going in the Phil's office because I was doing a segment on the show, but we were going to write from there because we have Friday paper and all that. And Jen comes back. I'm sorry. The reporter comes back and goes to use the women's room. And from the other side, there's this, "It's occupied," coming from the women's room with this deep baritone. The reporter never went in there. He was scared.
Do you remember what he did? He exited the bathroom, walked the back way around, and Travis knows this about studios. He got all kinds of doors getting in and out. He goes into the back door of the studio and comes out the front door like he was never in the bathroom. So he couldn't be blamed for it. Do you remember? And then Chuck got upset because he tickled Chuck from behind. Yeah. And you never surprised Chuck, and Chuck yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Never tickled Chuck.
No,
Never surprise Chuck. And most importantly, never surprise Chuck by tickling him.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
So that was one of our.
Well, how about the pizza? How about the pizza? Remember the pizza story? Matt, come on, Schwan. Matt Grassi, Matt Grasso.
Yeah,
Matt Grassi.
Yeah,
Dugas,
Matt
what was it?
before Matt
What was his
Dugas. Yeah, Grassi.
It was
Matt
Grassi,
Grassi.
right?
Grassi,
Okay.
yeah.
So I loved him. Matt was a great guy. I wish we'd hear from him again. He was a great intern. So we're going out for pizza one night. So I give him $25. Okay. So go Ray's, get 2 pizzas, bring them back. He says, no problem. He just got his license. I was all excited. So he comes back and he walks in. He goes, where are the pizzas? He goes, oh my God. He goes, they're back there at Ray's. I left them on my car and I pulled in. They're not on top of my car. So he runs back to the parking lot. Okay. As he's pulling in, he sees the 2 pizzas just sitting there on the ground, perfect, until the car ran over them, crushed them. He comes back. I give him another $25. 2 pizzas cost me $50 that night.
Well, that's almost as good as the pizza story from this year's anniversary show.
Oh God, I'm getting props, Kevin. Go ahead.
Okay, so we had invited people back for our 20th anniversary and all that, and we had done DoorDash to get pizzas delivered. And let's say the delivery driver didn't know where Snyder Road was. So we called and we're like, we're right near North Penn High School. He went to North Penn High School with 4 pizzas that we had ordered in case people had showed up, and was standing like, I'm outside. Now I'm on the air. Jeff is on the air. Daryl's back in the office trying to give this guy directions. And this guy didn't speak, what's it called? English. So we had a communication.
I just tell Dan, don't get worried, okay?
What?
I just tell Dan, don't get worried, okay?
And so we're going through this, and it's like, we're not getting these. The pizza came like 2 hours late, cold as hell.
Yeah.
And we never got a credit. We never got a refund.
How about the Kevin Cooney eats blue cake? We know the blue cake story. So we have a birthday at the radio station that day, and there's cake left over. So Kevin comes and says, "Can I have some cake?" So I say, "Go help yourself." So Kevin has some cake. So I talk to Kevin about 20 minutes later, and as he opens his mouth, I feel like I'm talking to Papa
I look like
Smurf.
a Smurf.
Yeah, Papa Smurf. His face is blue. His lips are blue. His tongue is blue. He's got blue on his hand. I said, what did you do? He goes, I had a piece of cake. Here he ate the plastic covering on the cake.
Oh.
He ate the plastic covering on the cake. And I had to sit across from him for 2 hours with blue coming down here, blue every time he opened his mouth up, every time he reached out.
It was great.
It was great.
That was great.
That was great.
You know, some of the best times were like the 20 minutes between when I would get back with the equipment from a game and then like hang around in the office, and I would just like see the food, you know, like pizza boxes picked through or like cake, and I'd look at it and just be like, I'm not sure how long this is sitting out. I don't think I want anything, but it's 9 o'clock at night and I'm starving, so I'm just like, okay, pepperoni, let's go.
But John, you missed the best dinners because, and Dan, you know this one, the Alderfer tailgate recipe.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Daryl.
Those were the best.
What you're talking about right here? These Alderfer tailgate recipes that I have in my hand?
It was
There
not
you
a
go.
complete broadcast until I heard the Leedy's Pork Products
That's right.
recipe of the week. That and
That's
the 5 locations of the physical therapy place, too.
Hey, Travis, it was 10 by the time we were gone.
Oh, okay.
Dan always apologized to the broadcasters because he said we're probably going to finish it before they get back. So, but we always enjoyed it.
Well, Daryl, a couple of times we had coaches come into the studio. They were looking for that food.
That's right.
So you sold it.
Can we share the secret, Jeff?
Go right ahead.
We never had any of
We
them.
never.
First year we did.
Okay, yeah, which
Oh,
leads
that's
to
right. The crock pot. The crock pot. Yes, that's right. We did the first time.
which
Yeah.
leads to
Ryan
another
used to cook, okay?
yeah, which leads to another Nolan practical joke he played on me, which was he made me think we were going to be used in promotional photos. So he had us. He staged. I refused. There was a recipe with grape jelly and hot dogs.
Yes. Oh my
Sweet
God.
and sour hot dogs.
Hot dogs.
Sweet and sour hot dogs, and he told me, oh, they're going to use this in a promotional thing, and he even got Joe Moskal to come in to take pictures.
Linda take pictures, yeah.
And we had it. I'm like, I'm not eating that. You got to. It's part of the promotion. All right, fine. So I have it, and like about 2 weeks go by, I go, yo, where's the promotional pictures? He goes, yeah, they're coming. I think he let me in like 5 weeks later. Like,
well, the whole thing was we made him eat a half a dozen because we wanted good pictures, and you could see on his face he was dying every single time.
Oh my God!
And Linda's standing there with the camera, and I'm just giggling because there's no film in the camera, and she's just taking pictures, and you're shoving them down.
Well, Kevin, I don't remember if this happened before or after that, but there was some revenge against Jeff courtesy of Daryl Berger.
No, what was
this? Do you remember?
I don't.
You remember the John Skibby? Oh my gosh, yeah, I remember.
It was the off the air one where you were joking around with Kevin.
Yes,
Jeff, and we were off the air. I don't want to get into it because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but
no, I can tell the story.
Okay, he's laid off now anyway, so what's the difference?
I know, but I don't want to speak too far out of school, but all I will say is when it was going on and nearly came to an end, the joke part came to a conclusion, I walked out of the back room. My stomach was gone. I'm thinking, oh, dear God, Jeff's going to be fired. I just couldn't believe it. So I was really early into this whole thing. But go ahead and tell them what happened, Jeff.
What happened was Daryl Berger, the program director, came in late and said, hey, you said something on the air that the owner was upset with. Now, the owner of our radio station is one of the most wonderful men that you ever meet.
Nice guy. Yep.
John Skibby.
Passed away.
Okay?
Yep.
A wonderful man. One of the highlights of working there was meeting him. It had nothing to do with Mr. Skibby. Berger was playing a trick on me. He goes, you might be terminated. You might be getting fired because you said this. And if you guys remember, I was 9-10 seconds away from just exploding and going off.
Yep.
And Berger stopped it. I mean, he couldn't have timed it any better. He let me off the hook right before I went off. Right before. It was a great practical joke because everybody believed it.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. Before we go, every one of us in this chat room, except for Collins, I think, and Travis, obviously, because you were in coal country.
I just came back from Shamokin there, Travis. By the way, I'll tell you about the construction. I'll tell you about the construction I had to deal with. Tough act the fact that
partook of the diner, and the diner was something we did after the show on Friday nights. A lot of us were single at that point. No kids. No. Oh, okay, Jeff. But it started as a tradition, I believe, Kyle, after a doubleheader.
Yeah. So
playoff doubleheader.
This was, I believe, in 2004 when we started this. So I was Jim Church was doing the North Penn games in the playoffs, and I was doing the Lansdale Catholic game. And I think LC was playing at Wissahickon. So what Jeff decided to do, which was a great idea, was we'll go live on the radio with the North Penn game, and we're going to be live on the internet, I believe, with the Lansdale Catholic game, but tape it as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And what you would do then is after the North Penn game ended, we do a super quick scoreboard show, like 10 minutes basically, since it was the playoffs. Like here's the scores, boom, boom, boom. Here's the Lansdale Catholic game. We're going to play it basically live from tape. And the way it wound up happening, I think the LC game might have ended around the rebroadcast that has ended probably around 11:30, maybe even midnight. And we were just sitting around and we're like, you know what?
Schwam, I think it was later. I think it was later. I think it was almost 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Okay, so we just said, you know what? Screw it. We're going to do a scoreboard show because there's nothing. Who's listening, first of all? It was basically like what we're doing right now. We just sat around, talked football, whatever, and then, we got off the air probably closer to 2:33.
Right.
And
Troy Aikman was pissed, by the way.
I just said, like, you know what? it's almost time. Like at this point, let's just go eat. Right? We've been in the studio for almost 10 hours at this point. So we went to the American Star Diner on Welsh Road in Lansdale, and that became like a Friday night tradition. And it was great because it was basically just after everything was said and done, we had a good night on the broadcast, on the scoreboard show, and we could just go either talk about the game, talk about who we thought was a horrible play-by-play broadcaster in the Philadelphia sports market, who the Flyers should trade for.
Or wait, Dan, we also talk about the Phils.
Oh,
Talk about the Phils too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kevin had the Philly story for us all the time.
Right.
Philly.
So the diner was great, and we always
you can't pick up those fingers, can you, Kev? Go
No,
ahead.
I can't. I'm reconsidering this video option.
Sorry, Schwab.
And we always over tipped our waitress because there's a bunch of
she saved some soup for us.
Yeah.
Do you remember Schwab? You remember our waitress's name?
Lori. That's right. Yeah. So you can imagine the diner crowd at 2 a.m. is typically not a savory one, but we were
including us.
No.
We were clear-eyed.
No, we were fine.
We were clear-eyed.
What's great is there is a sign when you walk into the American Star Diner, or you can't right now, but it's like, please wait to be seated. And we walked in like we were the freaking Rolling Stones. We just went right to our table, sat
right
down,
near the salad bar.
The drinks were there waiting for us. It was great.
But Kyle, our waitress was happy to see us because we would commandeer the table for 2.5 hours. We would leave her literally 100% tip.
Yeah.
So she loved us. She loved us.
What we did was, no matter what you had, you dropped a 20 on the table for the most part.
Yeah, pretty much.
Except Jimmy Nelson. Jimmy Nelson put a 10 on the table and took 12 back.
James Bond.
International man of mystery.
That's right.
That's after his phone rang 3 times because his mom was calling.
Yeah, right.
But that happens to all 30-year-olds.
Jimmy still has his milk money from kindergarten.
I miss Jimmy, man. Jimmy's got 2 kids now too. That was great. Remember, Laurie would literally drop everything she was doing and run to us.
Yes, she would, and she always knew she had my order because I never changed it for all those years. It was,
hey partner, I could do it. Yeah, hon, can I have BLT toast, no mayo? Skip the French fries and give me some applesauce.
You got it. That was it every week.
But that became anybody that started with us or had a first night for the most part. I would take over with us to the diner and just treat them to breakfast.
We take the interns once a year.
Interns, except probably everybody here on the panel. I probably never did.
Dude, we took you, right?
Oh, I was there every week for 2 years. You were big. You were a 2 scoops ice cream kind of guy in a Mountain Dew, if I remember correctly.
Those were the pre-diabetic
sausage.
Kevin, we're not under FCC regs here, right? I'm not going to use an F-bomb, but we're not under FCC regs here, right?
Oh, no, we're not. But
okay. Well, I think it was one of those dinners, Matt Dudas, being raised in the suburbs and I coming from North Philly. We were talking about some coach, I think, down in the lower area of Bucks County. We won't mention his name or his initials. And I used the term jit bag. Matt had never heard that word before. Thought it was the greatest description ever. He used it every chance he got. Then, when he went to Millersville and started on the golf team, had every member of the golf team using the term jit bag for whatever other college they were playing as they were hitting their, swinging their 9-iron.
Okay, since we're going down this road, the diner was also the creator of the Jeff, what's the section we always send people to?
Oh, yeah.
You guys are on there. You're on your own.
The F off section.
Yes, the F off.
And
if you annoyed us,
that's right.
Go to the F off section.
It's like the penalty box of the diner.
Yeah. Or if you can talk about the Phils.
That was the scoreboard show XM version.
Brian, did we take you to the diner?
Yeah. Me? Yeah. Brian's been there.
Yeah.
It was also great. When we took Brian to the diner, it was great because Brian really spoke about how he felt about some of the coaches who were in the area. Agreed?
I was trying to be honest.
The filter was down. Yes.
Yes, the filter was definitely down.
I very seldom hear Brian Hensel say anything negative about another coach. Never.
You're not going to hear me say that because
Not now.
As was said earlier in this broadcast, this is a tough job being a coach. You know, you're always being criticized. You get no pay for it.
Right.
You don't see your family, so yeah, you're a glutton for punishment for coaching.
And then you came to be a broadcaster where you always get criticized. You make no money.
Well, it was an easy transition.
And one thing we should say before we start to wrap it up here, Kyle and John and Daryl, you guys pull wonders on the field sometimes with equipment that didn't always hold up together.
Kyle's the king.
Kyle,
God, man.
The first game that before I even worked for you guys, I shadowed Schwami for a game. And I think it was North Penn LaSalle, probably week 2, 2012, something like that. And like seeing him run back and forth and like set up the wireless, test it pregame, and then, like run down there and automatically just pull together like 3 interviews on the spot. Like I was blown away by that the first time I saw it.
Kyle?
Well, I kept adding things to the broadcast, like from a technical standpoint, just, I don't know, to test myself. But like at the end, right, we would have our remote broadcast equipment. We would have an FM transmitter so we could hear the sideline when we went down to do post game. We had a wireless microphone. We had a mixer. We had a laptop. We had a mobile hotspot. I kept stats on an iPad while I was doing play-by-play and holding like my 9-square-foot chart. It was, it was fun. And I think at the end of the day, it was just, we tried to give the folks the best broadcast possible. And even if it's, like I said, a week 5 game between a 1-4 and a 2-3 team, we treat it like it's a Super Bowl. And the fans deserve your best every time. And that's where, the only time that I would come back to the station upset, and Jeff, this, is for 2 reasons. I would come back to the station upset if, from a technical side, we had some issues that whether like the wireless mic dropped out or we lost our connection a couple of times, or if I fudged a call at some point during the game, even if it wasn't like the game-winning touchdown, but it was like I misidentified the running back on a play that got a first down.
Yeah, you beat yourself up pretty good. Yeah,
because I know that it's something that family and friends are listening to. And if that's the kid's 1 carry for the game and I blew it, I didn't do my job that night.
No.
Kyle
you beat yourself up.
Yeah. Kyle made me have to up my game, and no one beats themselves up more than I probably do. But, part eyes and part seeing what Kyle did. I used to have everything on a legal sheet, and it would be in small print and everything. And I would just flip it and it'd be this one piece of paper covered in protective plastic for all the information that I wanted for the game. Then I see Kyle and I see his spot chart. And first of all, it's much easier on the eyes. And just all the information that he had on it. I still don't know how, Kyle, you do it with the iPad. I couldn't do it. I've got to do it by hand. It's too much with the iPad. But I had to up my game because I'm thinking Kyle has done major college. He's doing this. He's showing that there's a different way to have more information and have it easily available to you. And, to watch Kyle, whether I was doing color or just watching the game, he really had to make me up. In fact, I'd probably gone too far. I think I was blocking Kevin's view of the Eastern State Finals we worked last year for the network because my board's too big. But Kyle really, he really forced you to find another level. Even if it was off air, he forced you to find another level to be better. And, I appreciate that. And Kyle, I haven't said it enough, by the way, what you did with the scoreboard show in week 10.
Yeah, I want to talk about that before we go.
Yeah. Jeff.
But
just phenomenal.
But I want to compliment not only you, but Daryl and John too, because Kyle did make you guys work harder. John, you were a stud when it came to technology too. You were nobody's slouch in that department at all. So I
had never called a football game before, which is why, I needed to, I called probably 2 in college, but, I didn't have any sense of how to make my own spot chart. I mean, that big cardboard, 4x6, the Schwami is like, I made those for games that I did with you guys. and everything's split down the middle with little stories here and there about each team, and then the full rosters on it. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing a football game and having like a different piece of information in my hand than what I saw Kyle use.
You don't take that to basketball, do you? You condense it more for basketball, don't you?
Correct. Yeah. No, I have legal sheets that I do in Excel.
Okay.
It's way easier. It's way better.
Jeff, you want
my predecessor would just buy a program on the way into the stadium.
Excuse me. It's program.
Hey, real quick, guys, I have to jump out of here, but it has been great catching up with all of you from the beginning to the end.
Thank you, David.
And, hey, Kevin, it was always a pleasure having you on the air at the other station with us. Dan, too. Everybody else in the group, and Jeff, thank you. You're the one that first.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Do you know Jesus?
Yes. A personal relationship with Jesus Christ.
That's right.
Yes. That was an old spot.
That was Bill Redner's. That was Bill Redner's thing.
Yeah, we had a commercial for a church from Ewing, New Jersey on Pennsbury football. But Jeff is the first one that let me do play-by-play for ice hockey way back when. It ended up going to Pittsburgh. It ended up into Nauticom, and then it ended up into WNPV and the Intelligencer Scoreboard Show.
And now
25 years
Sirius.
of friendship, buddy. 25 years of friendship.
Yeah, and now I'm working with Sirius XM on the sales side. So radio is always in my blood.
Should be back in radio.
David,
good luck
thank
to
you.
all you guys.
Thank you very much, David.
Good to see you, Dave.
Jeff, before we wrap up, let's talk about week 10 and obviously what Kyle did. And we got to say this, Tim Ford beforehand was awesome.
The envelope.
Week 5.
Well, let me explain to Brian what's going on, because everybody else probably does. Tim Ford used to take an envelope week number 1, and he would put in the 8 seeds at that point and leave it, and we'd lock it up somewhere, and then we would open up week number 10. Yeah.
It was week 5 he used to do it. It was not week 1. It was always week 5 because we had an idea of what was going to happen. But then Kyle ran with it.
Oh, yeah. I think that program really just kind of was icing on a cake on that week number 10. And it was wild because I was finding ways to kill time. So Schwam had the time to get it done after doing the game, and, the pressure on him to get it right. Inevitably, somebody would sit there and say, oh, you were wrong or whatever like that. But it was
that was award-winning radio. I mean, really. And it only got better.
Good, Brian.
I was just going to say that I have a lot of friends in the football community, and when they heard that WNPV was going off the air, they said, is there any way to save the scoreboard show? And the very first thing that they talked about is, and I don't know what our listenership was in terms of volume, but I can tell you that everybody tuned in week 10. And Kyle, you were the centerpiece of that. And to this day, I can't think of a single person that hasn't said he's a genius. I can't believe he can pull all those numbers together, especially in the time that he has. And, in the situation we have right now with no sports live right now, professional, college, or even scholastic, when it comes back in the fall, I think that people are going to be saying, where's the scoreboard show? I don't think, I know they are. And I wonder what kind of vehicle can be put together to keep something like this alive. It won't be the same, but it's got to be alive in some way.
Brian, I'm just going to say this. You never know.
You never know. Kyle, your work that week, and obviously that starts week 1 for you. I mean, and you're still doing it for District 1, obviously.
Correct. Yeah. The work starts in July when the schedules officially come in, and I have to fill out the spreadsheet. The years that kill me are the every other year when the realignment happens and leagues change, so schedules change. Because a lot of years, like year to year, it's just, okay, now they're playing this team on the road week 2. And the formula is the same and the lookup is the same. So I have a big spreadsheet. It's got 6 tabs on it: single A, double A, triple A, 4, 5, and 6A. And it has the schedule of every team in District 1, which I think sits at 61 teams now, I think, in all classifications. Yep. And I'll shout out Dan Houston, who's a math teacher at North Penn High School. He showed me an amazing shortcut in Excel that helped me to kind of plan things and helped me to kind of save some time on the back end of things. Then it's just a matter of getting the data and getting it right and throwing it together and spitting out some numbers. I always have fun starting like week 8, trying to project who's going to be in and who's not. Usually upset some people along the way by saying like, why didn't you pick my team to win?
That's good radio.
It's good radio, right? But at the end of the day, I try to just sprint to the finish, and week 10, at 11 o'clock p.m., we are going on with the numbers, and we'll have all 16 coaches on. I wish people could see how many people go in and how many moving parts there is for that show on week 10. Getting coaches, like, because we don't know who we need to call until like 11 o'clock. And it's, Jeff is kind of running the board, and Kevin and Daryl and I are back, and we've got a couple interns in the front office trying to make phone calls to coaches. Meanwhile, I'm getting text messages from coaches like, where are we? What number do we have? And I'm texting them back like, leave me alone. I'm trying to do a show. We'll talk to you in a minute.
You're still trying to find a score from Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing is like we just got to go all over the internet to find what's going on. But it's a labor of love, and man, it is just you feel like you've run a marathon at the end of that show, but there's always a trip to the diner waiting for you when it's done.
Didn't you lose your computer late one season? Didn't you get fried or something?
That was when I moved. That's when I moved to Google Sheets and put everything in the cloud, because that was I had to basically redo everything. You're right, Daryl.
I remember that you were in the office. That was a nightmare for you. I felt so bad.
And then there was the year where a reporter listening to the radio had it up on his blog post 2 minutes after we signed off, which made Kyle really mad.
Oh yeah.
And well, here's the best part about that. I think the Schadenfreude here for Mr. Rick O'Brien was that
he wasn't going to bring the name up, but go ahead.
So we actually had the numbers changed the next day because of an opponent game that was being played on a Saturday, and it actually flipped 2 of the teams. And I immediately tweeted out hey, this is changing. I actually called the coaches that it involved, and he never updated his blog post. I think it's still wrong. So we win.
That's when the watermark started.
Yes,
that was
the watermark.
I want to ask Travis this question. You spent the past couple hours with us. Thanks for doing that. How do we compare as a group to what you work with in a different part of the state?
You're the best, period. I had a chance to work, luckily, at WPPA and T102 in Pottsville. Unfortunately, they never put the high school football recap show on the FM, the 50,000 watt FM. It was always on the 500 watt AM. We had scoreboard updates 3 times an hour, but usually downstairs on WPPA where the bathrooms were located, so I had to run down if I was engineering the game. And then they would lock the 2 doors. The guys who were downstairs working the game, they'd lock the 2 doors and leave me out. It's like, all right, I got to wait another 10 minutes to. But we had Pottsville area high school football, which they still have on WPPA. There was a time where we had 4 stations and games on every station, and the broadcast teams would come back and do recaps, and it would just be reading of the scores. We didn't have any other writers on. We didn't have any agreements at the time because the owners of the Pottsville Republican, they used to run one of our competing stations. And then thankfully 2003, they got sold and they shut the AM station down. And then Leroy Boyer, who's still the editor of the Pottsville Republican and Herald, he came aboard with us, and we did a Saturday morning hour-long show where we'd spend the first half hour of the show doing the scores and highlights and recaps, and then the second half would be interviews. But as far as a Friday night show, you guys were the best. And I've been part of other shows that had other writers on back when 106.5 in Bloomsburg was doing the Berwick games with the legendary Jim Doyle. They would
which
have
is
a
big,
wrap-up
which
show.
was huge for you guys up there.
It still is. It still is up there. But on my way home from Allentown or wherever, I didn't. If I couldn't get AM 1440, which was most of the time, I have the phone on, I have it all the way up, I have my sweatshirt on, and I would literally have the phone right here listening to you guys on the drive home, because there were no other shows in District 3. Usually the stations in Lebanon, you couldn't get them. Nobody in Lancaster had anything, nobody in Harrisburg or York had anything after hours, so you had to wait for TV. Luckily, you guys were there, and it was absolutely an absolute hoot to listen to you guys every night. And Kyle's Week 10 show was required listening.
Yep.
Regardless if you didn't know any of the teams, it was just from a guy who worked 17 years in radio, running games and knowing what it's like behind the scenes. Kudos to everybody who put that together. Board operators, and like you said, interns, broadcasters. That was award-winning stuff.
We're wrapping up here. I'm going to ask everyone to give a brief final thought. I'll give it in order here. I'm going to call you guys out. There's a specific order I want to go in. Let's start with Matt Dudas. Matt, can you kind of some final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe it's kind of been almost a half a lifetime ago for me that I started with you guys. Going back to the famous pizza, season opening night where I sat down with you. I'd grown up listening to games on WNPV. Going back to, I think 1998 was the first North Penn game that I went to. So, I remember the first time I went into the station, I went home and told my parents, I was working at WNPV, and my mom thought, I think the Alderfer tailgate recipe was real. So that was like telling her there's no Santa Claus. So that was tough, but I learned so much from Kyle. He's obviously been a big influence on me. I worked in the minor leagues after that, largely because of him, I think, and what I was able to learn. But all of you, I mean, I really cherish the friendships I have with Jeff for bringing me in, and I was the board operator on the NASCAR races, worked with Tanner, throughout all those times, and Kevin, I still keep in close contact with you. And, in the last couple of days, just talking to Dan again, it's like no time's passed. So it's been really special to me to kind of think about all the great times we shared together. A lot of those on the XM version of the show at Steiner. But it's all been a blast. And I really appreciate you guys having me be a part of this today. It's been great to kind of think about all the amazing memories that we were able to have together.
Moses is not back, so I'm going to go to Travis. Your thoughts?
Let me give you my NPV memories and with you guys. First time I ever hear the station, 1999. I'm actually in town with my friends from Bellefontaine State College because I was working there for a little bit at the time. And on our way home from the state bowling tournament, we were just searching the dial, and 1440, the NASCAR race. Perfect. We're listening as long as we can. Later that year, 99 state final between CB West and Erie Prep. I'm with Sports Fever. We're doing the game on the internet. We did the entire weekend. Jim and the guys are right next to us, and we wrap up our show. Jim and all the guys are still going on. I jump on and join Jim for a little bit during the post-game show. So that was my first time on NPV. And then you guys just being able to contribute to the show. It's been great. If you ever do it again, let me know. I'll be glad to be your District 3/Cole Region correspondent.
Travis, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Brian Hensel.
Well, I got to tell you, I feel blessed to have the opportunity of being part of the WNPV broadcast team. Sports are a major part of the fabric of what makes us America. And high school sports, and specifically high school football, is the pinnacle of youth sports. All of us have had a chance to be a part of that in some way, shape, or form in our formative years. And this show and this team has brought that to life for so many people. I'm going on my third decade of being a teacher and a coach in the area, and I can't begin to tell you the number of people that have told me how influential a program like this is and how much it meant to them. I still remember the very first time I was able to bring two of my captains over to the Saturday morning show on the bench with Jim Church. And I was just amazed by it because as a kid who grew up in Philadelphia, we didn't have weekly broadcasts on the radio. It was pro teams and college teams. So by the time I came into the Central Bucks area, I was telling my friends that I had grown up with, oh, yeah, the game's on the radio this week. And they were amazed by the fact that the coverage that that was able to be given to local sports, and it's only grown and gotten better. And I look forward to seeing, what can happen with this. What will happen after this is moving on and where it will go next. But it's a great thing, and it's got to have a life that continues.
Brian, thank you. Let's go to Dan Morehouse. Dan?
Yeah, Kev, for me, I mean, I had no business being on the radio. I had no broadcasting background. I was a school teacher. I could write because I went to Catholic school. They teach you how to write in Catholic school. And I got that newspaper job by a fluke, then met Jeff. Jeff brought me into the radio station, and I spent from week 15 of 2003 to the fall of 2012 when I got sick. I didn't finish out that season because I got sick with my heart issues. And it was a blast. I mean, every year was a blast. The friendships that I made, the people that I met, the relationships that I'm going to have forever. I'm real grateful to everybody involved in that. Because like I said, I had no right being there.
Dan, thank you. Daryl.
There's John. You saw John. John just
oh, wait. Moses back?
I think John's back.
John.
John.
He's on
We could get John on the air here.
Hold on here.
Why is Maddie muted?
No, he muted himself.
He muted himself.
Okay, there he is. Okay.
I have a dog. I don't want my dog hijacking the show.
That's okay. Hey, John, Moses.
Hi. Yes. Sorry, my parents called me.
That's okay.
What
is that, Jim Nelson? Talk about mom and dad.
How's your mom and dad?
John, we're doing our final thoughts. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the station sort of ending its run is a pretty just sort of hard thing for me to swallow. This was the first place that I really felt like I had my own opportunity to start to build on a career. I'd done a little bit of baseball, and that was such a strange experience, but this really felt like the first time that I had the opportunity to just do what I was most interested in. And I said before, I'm forever thankful to meet Jeff Nolan and to have the opportunity that he provided me, and then build a great friendship over the years. And now even to this day, like Jeff and I call each other and talk about women's basketball in the MAC and Ryder for a long time. And when the news came across that NPV was going to close and go off the air, I remember feeling pretty emotional for a couple days. It's you always remember where you got your start, and for me, that's WNPV.
John, I appreciate it. Hopefully there's a minor league baseball season for you coming up here at some point.
Yeah, really.
I'm not optimistic, but I hope so too, guys.
I appreciate it. Daryl Dobus.
Dan, you said, you didn't think you belonged on radio. All I know is that if Jeff wasn't such a great friend and had some kind of trust in me, I'd have probably been off the air about 15 years ago. He's covered my ass more than I can even thank him for. So you can blame him for me doing it.
Daryl, keep in mind, I used to drink a lot.
Yeah, I know. I know. I was there to bail you out a couple times on that. Two quick thoughts. I didn't mind being a foil on and off the air. We definitely had a lot of pretty funny conversations off the air during the games. But two quick things that come to mind. First of all, year you guys were doing, I guess it was week 10. I'm coming back from Stratham. You guys were trying to decide who's going to win districts. And North Penn was the 8th seed. And when you played it back the following week, and I had said North Penn was going to win districts, and everyone was picking, what was it, Downingtown, I guess. And they was like, Downingtown's going to win, Downingtown's going to win. And you never played me because I was the only one that said, fine, North Penn's winning district, and they ended up winning.
Yeah, remember that? We edited it out.
You edited it out. You never did that. You never put that on, and you never gave me credit, and I didn't mind.
We're still playing your we're still playing your field goal call from McManus. It's still on the air.
I was going to say that the radio station's been shut down and it's still going.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. But the other memory I'm going to have is going to be. There are goofy calls, and God knows I've made an idiot of myself on the radio. But this year, the fact you trusted me to take over for Kyle, and it was a hell of a season. I mean, we had North Penn that struggled. We had a lot of close games. The week, and maybe it's the West in me, and Coach, you'll know this. The week that West had when they beat North Penn, and the hell they went through. I mean, I've got 2 kids in that school, and what they went through. And Kevin was with me on the call, and my voice was gone. I was sick, and they won that game. And to see the emotion after that game was just so amazing. And then they lose to Souderton. I knew these kids. This is where it's tough. This is where I know these kids on these teams. I coached them. So then they lost to Souderton in that heartbreaker. And then, you know, we see that double overtime loss by Souderton to South when Souderton had the chance to tie West for a league title. It was so – the season was so emotional, and there were so many good teams that were doing so many good things, and we got to see them. And, Jeff, I don't think you picked a better schedule start to finish. We really had great games. It wasn't about flex at the end. We had good games from Neshaminy getting blown out by North Penn right out of the chute to the final one, you know, in the regular season. And Kevin, it's always fun doing games with you. I will not forget Thanksgiving and all that we went through and the love Quakertown gave us up there in the booth. That just start to finish, it's a shame it ended, and I can't believe that's the last football game I'm going to call on WNPV. But this season it's been fun. It's been magical.
Thank you, Daryl. Kyle Berger.
I can't believe they paid us to do what.
Wait, you got paid?
Hey, Kyle, you're not getting paid today.
I know I'm not, but this is the thing, right? We've just sat around on a conversation for the better part of 3 hours, and it was like we've been friends for life. And that's the stuff that I take away from this. You know, the thrill of calling a high school football game on a Friday night is one thing, and it's nice to go up into the press box at Crawford Stadium and see the same people sitting right in front of you, season in and season out, and you just say, hi, how are you? You know, the same coaches at different high schools when you visit them in August, just to check in and see, hey, how have you been? It's been a while. To be invited into stadiums, to be invited into locker rooms by coaches and players, and develop a relationship with them has just been really special. And to develop friendships from poker games to pay-per-view boxing matches.
Yep.
All of this group watching together in somebody's basement, or somebody's parents' basement. You know, it's been just so much fun. I think it's fitting that we're going to bring this to a close at a little bit after 7:00 on a Friday night, because that's my favorite time of the week. And, you know, for the last several years, I have to be in early at school on Fridays. So I was getting up at like 4:45 in the morning, and I never felt tired doing a high school football game or doing the scoreboard show, because it's just something you love so much, and you get so much energy from everybody that's involved. And we had a good run, boys. Something we can always be proud of.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm going to give my final word, then give it to Jeff for the last word here, and then we'll say goodbye. You know, I think one of the things you think of when things are good, or sometimes when things are bad, and, you know, it's strange when you say this, but, you know, I know that studio, and I know the people that I worked with for 20 plus years. And I remember the nights when it wasn't great. The night I got laid off at the Courier, Jeff went, hey, take the night off. I'm like, no, I want to be there. 2 weeks after being in ICU, I was there on a Friday night because I wanted to be there. And I couldn't imagine being anywhere else back in 2013 with Dan and Kyle and Jeff. September 11th, the Friday afterwards, I was covering a game at Council Rock. I busted my rear end to get back to Lansdale because I wanted to be with my guys. That kind of shows what kind of family we became. And, you know, from funerals and weddings and everything, we were there for each other. And that beyond games is what I think I'll always remember. I'll always remember that this was my happy place for 15 Friday nights of fall. There were times it wasn't always happy. There were times we all got mad at each other.
Yeah.
We had screaming matches that would have dented doors. But it was the people that always made me come back. And the one, you know, and Kyle and Dan and Daryl and Brian and all them and everybody. I kept coming back because of them and because of the kids and everything that we were doing. But I especially want to say I came back because of Jeff. And Jeff took this kid who showed up for a preseason show in a full suit and tie, thanks to Daryl, back at Nauticom, for remembering that radio was a non-visual medium. And Mr. Nolan had a lot to do with what I've been able to accomplish in whatever journalism career I've had. And for that, I'm thankful, and I'm always thankful for everybody in this room. Jeffrey?
First of all, it's 7:08 Eastern Time,
What time?
5:08.
7:08.
No, it's 7:11 Eastern Time, 5:11 Central Time, and we have not had to play the Mexican national anthem to wake Dan up. And the second thing would be, nobody knows Daryl.
Excuse me, I got a pain.
Why don't you, a trivia question about a famous
It took 3 hours, 15
player.
minutes to get there. Go ahead.
Nobody's going to understand that he's trying to pass a stone.
Inside
Jeff
joke.
He visited me in the hospital when that happened. I
Yeah.
thought it was a pulled muscle. I remember that.
Yeah.
That was Souderton. That was the Souderton game I did at Old Souderton.
Yeah, drove home. You drove. You actually white-faced it all the way over to the hospital. You were in so much pain. I remember that.
I was trying to get to Doylestown Hospital. I couldn't make it. I ended up making it to the one right there in Lansdowne.
I would agree with what everybody said. It was fun. First of all, I can't believe we made that much of an impact listening to what people said today and over the past month. I didn't realize we were that impactful. I thought we were just like Kyle said, a bunch of guys getting together, shooting the breeze, having some fun and that kind of stuff. But I'm grateful for everything to Travis, our main guy outside of the area, just a big proponent of ours and always helping with scores and that kind of stuff. Staying connected through Facebook has been tremendous. Maddie, you walked in as a kid and we had to watch our P's and Q's and what we said. And then you walked back in and we said whatever we wanted to say because you weren't a kid anymore, and your work was great. And it was absolutely tremendous because Kyle taught you so well. Brian, a gift to get to know you late in what we've been doing. And I'm going to miss going to camps with you and you standing there and telling me why something is happening and what's going on and why they're doing this. And this kid over here, you're going to love him because he did this. And I love those visits that we had the chance to do. I mean, I'm going to miss that tremendously. The real John Moses, man. We started doing this NPV stuff together. We went to Ryder together. You are a pro in all senses of the word. And I can tell you, man, I was nervous when Schwam wasn't there. But if I knew you were there, I was fine. If I knew Daryl was there, I knew we were fine. Man, you are pro's pro, and you're right. Thank God I could call one person and talk about women's basketball because these guys, they're not going to help me a little bit on that. Okay?
Sorry,
Danielle, Dan and I talk once a week. Dan becomes a lifelong friend. I watch Dan get remarried. I watch Dan. I've talked to Dan in his downest moments, and I am spending now this part of my life talking to him in his happiest moments right now. Dan is a friend for life. I talk to him once a week, and he was the man that sat there and said, "You're about done." And that would be it. And I go, okay, thanks for letting me vent. And I love Dan like family, man. I do. And Double D, same thing. It started with Tony Chapman throwing his suit coat over his back and you counting how many Diet Cokes he had, back in 1995 or 96, And yeah, we butted heads. We've been through the wars, but I've always got your back. And you are more talented than you let yourself believe. And you got to stop telling yourself you're not that good, because you are that good. And you always have to remember that, because you are. Schwammer, we brawled, we did everything, man, because you and I just wanted to be the best. And I am grateful for the friendship and grateful to be part of your wedding. Love watching you get married. Love watching you raise your daughter. It's tremendous. It is absolutely tremendous to have you as a friend. And listen, our lives are going this way and that kind of stuff, but I always know that if I want to pick up the phone, I can call you. Or if I need a broadcaster, I got Schwam. And you are the best I've ever worked with. Hands down. You are the best I've ever worked with. And I would walk into any press box, carry your equipment, and put them down and say, I dare you to be better than us. No doubt. Cooner, you're my family, brother. You walked in. Cooney didn't quite tell the story. He didn't have a suit on. He had black pants, a white shirt, and a tie. I thought he was delivering ice cream. So he really, I was confused, which was upsetting because I was really counting on ice cream that day because it was so hot.
Yeah, it was.
It was. But, you know, Kevin gives me credit for his advancement or whatever, but I sat here as a cheerleader hoping he got further ahead. And I watched him commit to do it and wanting to be the best. And when I turn on WIP, as long as it's an announcer that I like and he's on, I'll listen. If not, I turn it off. But I listen to Cooney on the radio and you know, or watching him on TV. The funniest Kevin Cooney story I could ever tell you is he is on behind a setup in the Palestra. He's not on the air, but he's on his cell phone and he's telling me I'm on the air. So I put on Comcast and there's Kevin. Within 2 or 3 minutes, I had him doing the goose walk, the German goose walk, and doing different things. I would say, okay, do a duck walk. He'd do a duck walk. And I'd say, okay, wave your hand like this. And he'd wave his hand like this, all behind the cameras of the live shot. And my wife and I were sitting here, we almost wet our pants because anything I told him to do, he would do. It was great. But I love you, brother, and you did a great job putting this together. You and I aren't going anywhere. All of us are not going anywhere, and you never know what's going to happen. Thank you to everybody.
Hopefully, we will see everyone in some form in September. Hopefully, an opportunity comes up. You never know, as Jeffrey said. But this has been, at least for now, the last WNPV-Intelligencer Scoreboard Show.
Hey, what's coming up next, guys?
The Troy Aikman Show is coming up next. Troy's guest host is Jim Bohannon. So for Jeff Nolan, Paul Berger, Dan Morehouse, Brian Hensel, Matt Dudas, John Moses, Travis Sparks, Daryl Dobus, and Dave Collins, a cast of thousands. Our thanks to Mark Schmidt, Ed Gallagher, George Banas, Dick Beck, Jeff Biden, everybody.
We got them all.
Yeah, we got them all. Thank you for joining us. This has been the WNPV-Intelligencer Scoreboard Show. Gentlemen.
Kevin, it's been real. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kev.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for calling me and including me, Kevin. Matt, stay out of trouble.
Hey, you stay out of trouble. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good.
Take care, guys. Talk soon.
See y'all. Love you.
See you,
well, Jeff.
Cheers,
Thank you.
Hey, Dan, you're not enjoying the favorite crop of Colorado, are you?
The bull testicles, Rocky Mountain oysters.
I'm thinking more the leafy variety.
Oh no! Oh God, no! Oh, I'm like Daryl. I'm gonna be 70 years old on my next birthday. I can't be polluting my brain.
You look I haven't seen you in years, dude. You look fantastic. Christ, I'm 20 years younger than you, and I look like crap.
But you're too hard on yourself, man.
No, I see myself every morning in the mirror. Trust me, I'm not that hard on myself. but no, dude, you look fantastic. I'm so glad you're doing well.
Thanks. Yeah, we walk a lot now. Joanne and I, we fill our day